administrator right now.
Hey everybody,
This
let
is
me
going
turn
to
this
be
down for just a second. There is a big controversy here, and let me set the stage. I'm certain you know about this. This is the map, runway 33, Virginia, plane, American Airlines CRJ700 Canadair. Actually, it didn't collide with the Blackhawk. The Blackhawk collided with it. It was going along, and this video right here shows there's the Blackhawk, there's the larger plane, and it collides right in it. You hear this, see this light, and then smoke. And what happens to both is anyone's best guess at this point. It's difficult to tell, except that clearly they both stopped their motion and went down. Why did the helicopter, and this gentleman asked the correct question. That's a fake name there. Why does it look like the Blackhawk flew straight into the jet? Because that's exactly what it looks like is going on. Right now, this is the Potomac area, and where CNN has its cameras pointed is just to the right of the center where all these lights are. Clearly the scene of investigations going on over there. I don't know why they're pointing over here, but overall it's difficult to tell where the debris is, if it is indeed over there rather than someplace else. But the question that I have, and I'm glad I'm not the only one, is close-up of the collision. Why does it look like the Blackhawk flew straight into the jet? You know, that's the big question. This is on Twitter, and what's the latest? It says footage has captured the horrific moment. A Blackhawk helicopter collided. It says collided with a regional jet midair in Washington D.C. Then Blackhawk military helicopter. It wasn't it's not military police. And Ms. B says, "Yep, I keep watching the video, and that Blackhawk appears to have had ample time to put a visual on the commercial jet. It also gets lower and goes straight into it. Just weird." Rumor on X says there was a general on board the Blackhawk. I don't know about this. Trump, I don't know. The general, this doesn't make any sense. For one thing, the Blackhawk collided with the airplane. It would make sense if the general was on the American Airlines flight. So no. Current reports say Blackhawk, and the flight path of the Blackhawk, they're saying, doesn't make any sense. That's not real. It does look like the Blackhawk hit the plane or vice versa. It looks like the Blackhawk hit the plane. Agreed. The Blackhawk purposely flew directly into the plane. And then it says devastating events at DCA Reagan involving the collision of an American Airlines regional jet and an Army Blackhawk helicopter. It says something is seriously effed up here. Who was on the Blackhawk and who was on the American Airlines flight? We know that there were 60 passengers that were on that flight. 60, okay? Alexis says, according to Reuters, an official has stated there was no senior military officer on board the Blackhawk helicopter, which crashed earlier at Ronald Reagan. Well, who was then? And that's good news. And then this person says there are no conspiracy theorists anymore. Either has happened, is happening, or will happen. The Blackhawk helicopter flew into the plane. Terrorist hit, this person claims. The American Airlines flight that collided with the Blackhawk, see, that's wrong. It didn't collide with it. Rescue operations are ongoing. That's the economic dog. Okay. American Airlines confirms 64 on board, 60 passengers, 4 crew. PSA operated flight 5342. The plane collided with a U.S. Army. The plane didn't collide. So they see the plane collide. No, the Blackhawk helicopter collided with the plane. It ran right into it. Okay, that's wrong. Holy Spirit said to us, the pilot of the Blackhawk helicopter was going to hit with severe. I don't know what that is. A passenger plane. I mean, I know about the Holy Spirit and everything, but I'm just not. I'm trying to piece things together right now and just praying for the people that are on board both planes, both the aircraft. A passenger plane from Wichita or a Blackhawk flying in the vicinity of Langley could be a white top carrying a VIP. No, again, that's an assumption about a helicopter. They said no seniors. But the question is, why was a Blackhawk in that space? A PSA Airlines Bombardier regional jet, it didn't collide. I don't know why they keep saying this. The Sikorsky hit it. That's the problem. The Sikorsky hit it. All right? So here's what's happened, and this is where it's going. All right? That's DCA. And then here's the Sikorsky. Here's, let me see if I can get a bigger view of that. There, okay? All right? That's the claim. Okay? So, DCA here takes off and then collides here. So, let's see what's going on here.
Might have come off the aircraft, presumably. It's what they were looking for. You can tell even from where we are, Abby, just looking across the river at what that urgent scene looks like. We've seen some of those wide-angle pictures of the response, just how many vehicles and responders are there. But again, we are now learning, yeah, the plane is in the water. At least part of it is submerged under the water. My source who was there couldn't exactly say how much of it. And again, it is an urgent scene. They have divers heading there now, and they're just hoping and praying for the best.
That is some new and important information there. Part of the aircraft in the water, part of it apparently out of the water, which I think also tells us quite a lot.
Let's go back and hear what this person said, because he was talking in the middle of my presentation. So we're going to roll back and listen to this gentleman again present this new information. So one moment, please. One moment, please. And
the astonishing information that adds another dimension to what we don't know here in this incident. Colonel Layton, thank you for that, and stand by for us. Coming up next is Gabe Cohen is with us. He's at Reagan National Airport. Gabe, you're inside the airport, is my understanding. What are you hearing about the response there?
Yeah, so Abby, we're inside the airport because we are expecting potentially an update here on the crash and the response in this entire situation here in the next little bit. I can tell you, though, I've spoken with a source, a law enforcement source here in the D.C. area, who is at the scene right now, who painted a really grim picture of what they're looking at, saying that at least part of the plane is underwater. We don't know exactly how much of it. They have divers on the way to the scene. They're really frantically searching for survivors at the moment. But just driving around, we drove the entire area around the Potomac, essentially, the Maryland side, the Virginia side, and you could see not just dozens and dozens of law enforcement vehicles, but also even officers on one of the bridges in the area shining flashlights into the water, just looking for any signs of anyone who might have come off the aircraft, presumably. It's what they were looking for. You can tell even from where we are, Abby, just looking across the river at what that urgent scene looks like. We've seen some of those wide-angle pictures of the response, just how many vehicles and responders are there. But again, we are now learning, yeah, the plane is in the water. At least part of it is submerged under the water. My source who was there couldn't exactly say how much of it. And again, it is an urgent scene. They have divers heading there now, and they're just hoping and praying for the best.
Yeah, that's
that is some new and important information there.
Yep,
part of the aircraft in the water, part of it apparently out of the water, which I think also tells us quite a lot. Thank you very much for that report. Peter Goals is with us now. He's a former NTSB managing director. Peter, thanks for being with us. Walk us through the investigative part of this. What is happening on the ground right now as it's now been almost 2 hours since this incident occurred.
People dead by now.
Well, the NTSB headquarters is less than 2 miles from the accident scene. So my guess is that, and there are 2 teams that will be launched from the NTSB. The first is the well-known, the investigative team. And my guess is there are investigators on scene already. The chairman of the agency is likely to be on scene shortly, and the investigation, they will be looking for a hangar to start moving parts to. They will be doing the nuts and bolts to get this investigation off the ground as soon as it's possible at first light. But the second and very important team that has been launched is the NTSB Family Assistance Team. Following the 1996 TWA accident off of Long Island, the President and the Congress tasked the NTSB with overseeing family assistance. And they have a team that will launch, that will work with American Airlines, that will work with DCA, with Reagan National, to make sure that the family members are being treated, as well as can be done under these terrible circumstances. The commitment the NTSB makes to family members is they get the information first. So once the search and rescue portion of this terrible response is over, then family members will be getting briefed by the NTSB on a very regular basis. But the NTSB has probably got 30 people mobilized and headed in the, if not on scene, headed there shortly.
Peter, I appreciate you bringing that up, and the families involved here, both the crew
Right.
and the passengers. It's extremely important what they might be going through tonight, the uncertainty, the not knowing. We don't know anything at all as we speak here about any casualties in this crash. But these moments are terrifying for those families. Peter, stand by for us. I want to go back to Pete Montine. Pete, you have some new information. What are you learning?
This is the new information from our Natasha Bertrand and Haley Britsky at the Pentagon, that this Blackhawk helicopter that was involved in this mid-air collision with this regional jet flight by American Airlines was carrying 3 members of the United States military on board, but no VIPs. Blackhawks are a very common sight in the airspace over Washington, D.C., shuttling VIPs to and from places like the Pentagon, also Fort Belvoir. That is where a lot of these military helicopters are based. Davison Army Airfield, just south of D.C.
See, what they're not
Interstate
reporting is that the
395.
helicopter
So
collided
again,
into the
we
plane.
now know the totality.
They keep saying the
full
plane
count
collided with a
of the
helicopter.
people involved in this crash. American Airlines confirms
These folks
to us
on this
that there
video
were
saying,
60
I'm the only person
passengers
that's telling
on
the
board
truth.
this flight. American Airlines flight 5342 from Wichita, Kansas was slated to land at Reagan National Airport about 10 to 9 Eastern time. And we now know that there were 4 crew on board that flight, and that that flight collided with this Blackhawk helicopter carrying 3 people on board. This is very clearly a tragedy no matter how you slice it. An incredible failure of the systems that are on board commercial airliners mandated since the 90s. The rules in aviation are written in blood, and pretty much every commercial airliner in the U.S. has something on board called TCAS, Traffic Collision Avoidance System. TCAS tells the pilots when there is an impending collision with another airplane, or in this case a helicopter, providing an oral warning for the pilots saying, climb now, descend now, even in that tone of voice, to make sure that the pilots get the pure urgency of the situation unfolding in front of them. This is an incredible response by search and rescue crews in the Potomac River. This is a moonless night in the nation's capital. They're incredibly hampered by the cold temperatures, the water temperature right now, according to our weather team. And I want to pull this up again. Today it was about 50 degrees out, air temperature wise, but the Potomac River about 35 degrees, meaning hypothermia can set in a matter of minutes. It is a race against the clock. This is a real life drama taking place right now, just outside of the nation's capital on the Potomac River at one of the busiest runways in the country, runway 1 at Reagan National Airport. It's what this flight was initially lined up to land on, and then swung out to the east over the shores of the Potomac on the Maryland side to line up with runway 33, a tactic commonly used by air traffic controllers
folks,
to
hold
keep
on
the
a
pace
second.
and flow of airplanes up.
Let me mute this
you can
because,
see all of the lights
my
there
gosh.
on the Potomac right
Hold
now.
on, folks. Hey, folks, this fellow on Twitter, Dan, he says he's cut together the air traffic control recordings from around the time the Washington, D.C. crash involving the American 5342 took place. Part of it does appear to have controllers asking a pilot if they have, quote, the CRJ in sight. Then controllers can be heard reacting to the explosion. Holy cow. Okay, let's see what this gentleman's got here.
Blackjack 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. Blackjack 3, proceed. Fairfax 1, I need you to land immediately. Fairfax 1, understand, land immediately, look at the field. Top 6, go ahead. You land immediately. Can you go to Dollars for a few minutes?
There are different breaks in here, folks. Sorry about that recording, but there occasionally will be breaks like the one. It doesn't mean that there's nothing there. It's just that they haven't said anything. Jack Bauer, Jack says something I read about this Z. Jack, you've never been more correct. I completely agree with you. Let me see here if that's the end of it. Wait a minute. I think that it was the end of it. Hold on a second. Let me try that again. Here.
That's 2-5, get the CRJ in flight. That's 2-5, have fun at CRJ. It's not as a aircraft inside precision separation. The 472 Washington Tower, 1 star, 32017. Did you see that? 472. American 3130, go around, turn left end 250, climb maintain 3000.
He said, did you see that?
Left end 350, 3000, American 3130. Tower, Blue Streak, 5347 is on final. Request runway 33, circle to 33. American 472, Council landing clearance, runway 1 continue. Also 13, standby. Blackjack 3, can you return to base? Blackjack 3, Blackjack 3, proceed directly to Glebe. I need you to land. Blackjack 3, proceed. Fairfax 1, I need you to land immediately.
He's telling all these other planes to
1, understand, land immediately, look at the field.
Wow.
Top 6, go ahead.
Yeah, telling all
You
these
land
other...
immediately. Can you go to Dollars for a few minutes?
Yeah, see, they were trying... What happened was that after that happened, folks, they were trying to tell the other planes in the air to go someplace else to land. Because they were all in the air and they needed to clear the airspace. So, there. Anyway, let's see what's going on here.
Chopper from the Army website, just to give you a sense of what kind of aircraft this is. This is a very common aircraft that flies around in the DC area, as you've been hearing all of our guests say tonight. Natasha, what more are you hearing from DoD?
Yeah, Abby, so we're hearing from a U.S. Army official that this aircraft, this Blackhawk, was out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Now, it's unclear whether it was headed to Fort Belvoir or that it took off from Fort Belvoir, but that is the extent of the information we're getting right now. And what that indicates to me is that this was a Blackhawk helicopter that was likely attached to the 12th Aviation Battalion, and that is based at Davison Army Airfield at Fort Belvoir. And the 12th Aviation Battalion, interestingly, it does a lot of transportation of senior DoD and Army officials. It's known as a priority air transport, but we should be very clear here that according to an Army official, there were no VIPs on board this flight. There was no one, no senior Army officials, no senior DoD officials, no senior U.S. government officials on this aircraft at the time that it collided with this passenger plane.
See,
We were told instead that it was 3 crew members, 3 U.S. Army soldiers that were on board at this Blackhawk. So As of right now, that is the extent of what we know. Still trying to get more
This is
information from the
maddening.
Pentagon,
They keep
and
saying
we
that,
as well.
like,
So the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, he tweeted
the question was
that
who's
he
on the
is
passenger plane?
monitoring the situation very closely and also trying to get as much information as he can at this point, Abby.
So yeah, Fort Belvoir, not too far actually from Reagan Airport, just down the Potomac from Reagan.
Hey, folks, I just want to
one
say
of the many,
something real quick.
military bases.
Is that I've flown in and out of DCA a bunch of times. And, for example, the inauguration for President Obama. And who was getting on the flight with me, I can prove it by video? Paul Ryan, okay? There are a number of heads of state, dignitaries, elected officials that fly in and out of DCA normally. So the question was, who was on the passenger flight, right? They keep talking about the helicopter. Okay, fine, there were no dignitaries on it, but as we saw, the helicopter flew right into that plane. Okay? Right into it. And the air traffic controller saying, hey, did you see the CRJ? You know?
Yeah, they're not saying anything.
No, they're not saying that. No, they're not.
Well, it's probably all
No, this is okay. Wow.
An attempted landing here.
Abby, it's kind of amazing it works on a good day when you think about how busy, constrained, complicated, and restricted this airspace is. It's a careful minuet which keeps all these aircraft from colliding with each other, as we have seen, unfortunately, on this evening. What's interesting here is the two aircraft, if you look on the map horizontally, were exactly where they were supposed to be, at least horizontally. There's a helicopter avenue, if you will, beneath the flight path to the final approach to that runway. And if everybody stays at the right altitude, nothing happens. So was there some distraction in either aircraft or some confusion which put them either lower or higher than their assigned altitude? That's going to be the crux of this investigation. And a secondary issue here is just the larger issue of how complicated and difficult this airspace is to keep safe.
Yeah, Miles, I'm going to interrupt you for just a moment. We just got in a statement from the President of the United States, Donald Trump. I'm going to read it to you. It says, I have been fully briefed on the terrible accident which just took place at Reagan National Airport. May God bless their souls. Thank you for the incredible work being done by our first responders. I am monitoring the situation and will provide more details as they arrive. Miles, this is obviously going to be a major tragedy, regardless of what the ultimate outcome is for this country.
Hold on a second. Hey, folks. Is any 60 meters on the White House press list? Take a look. We just got that communication. See, Office of Communication statement from President Donald J. Trump. Just came through at 10:52. It's 10:57. So let's open it up. See what we got here. All right. So it says for immediate release, statement from President Donald J. Trump. I've been fully briefed on the terrible accident which just took place at Reagan National Airport. May God bless their souls. Thank you for the incredible work being done by our first responders. I'm monitoring the situation, provide more details as they arise. Statement from President Donald J. Trump. Zenny 62 Media has been on the White House press list since 2012. And thank you, President Obama. Now, back to here. Going here, going there. All right.
Is an extraordinary record when you consider what I was just talking about, the complicated spaces in which all these aircraft fly, the limitations of the sizes of the airports, the strain on the air traffic control system, the lack of personnel that ATC has, the long shifts that they do. It's extraordinary how well it works, actually. And on this night, we pause and think of those who lost lives here and hope that their loss does lead to some measure of additional safety for the rest of us.
Miles O'Brien, thank you. I want to go now to CNN's Brian Todd live at the scene. Brian, tell us what you're seeing now.
Hold on a second.
All right, Abby, we have had a chance to move locations. We're now at the Dangerfield Marina, which is just south of Reagan National Airport. We're by the water. We can get a bit of a better vantage point to the scene of the accident there. We're going to pan to the right. David Brooks, my photojournalist, is going to show you the activity there. That seems to be where the activity is concentrated on the water. Now, just across, we're on the Virginia side. Just across the water from us is Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. That is an Air Force base that is just across the river there. That appears to be the area of the water where this crash occurred. Now, from what we know now, it does not relate necessarily to the base itself, this accident. What we're told by a U.S. defense official is that this was an Army Blackhawk helicopter out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia, that had a crew of 3 people on board. American Airlines has told CNN that the passenger plane that collided with that helicopter had 60 people on board and a crew of 4. Some additional information our colleague Gabe Cohen has from a law enforcement source that they are basically, they have every available agency working on search and rescue operations right now in this area behind me. That source telling Gabe Cohen that basically they are painting a grim picture of what they're seeing, but they don't have any word on casualties yet.
Brian, we just saw on the camera some aircrafts in the sky. Can you give us a sense of what kind of activity you're seeing in the skies?
Hold on a second. I'm going to interrupt him one moment because Tenacity for Truth has a question. He writes, or she writes, I don't know, what is a CRJ? This is a CRJ700. I've been on them a bunch of times. Here's a video from my flight. This is 9 years ago on United Airlines. I'll just play this real quick. I have to turn the volume up so you can hear it. There it is.
I'm leaving Anaheim for WonderCon. It's been a great trip. Here's my plane. United Airlines, once again, greatest airline in the world. And live long and prosper. Happy Easter.
Yeah, so that's the interior. That's the interior of the CRJ. I'm going to give you a look at what the I said the interior. The exterior of the CRJ. I'm going to give you a look at the interior of it in a few seconds here so you can see what it's like, and then we'll get back to what they're talking about. She's doing more like, background, surround stuff. And so give me one moment here while I get the other video and history, video details. Let's see here. I think what I'm going to do is CRJ700 Canadair. I'm gonna have to pipe this back in here because I had it.
I'm leaving Anaheim for WonderCon.
One moment, folks. I'm just gonna get that here real quick. So video details. See if I can get that coming over there. There, it takes you back to the studio. And I don't know why. Oh, there. Okay, press that. Here we go. All right, and then I'll filter with CRJ here. Excuse me for a second. CRJ. There. And okay. Here is, yeah. One video. I've got more than I realized. Trying to one that gives you an idea what the interior looks like. That's what I'm looking for right at this point. Here is there. Yeah, I'll use this. I'll use this one. Okay. This is rendering. One moment, please. Okay, let me take you back over here. That, okay. And boom.
Well, folks, on the second leg of my journey on the flight now from Dulles to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. I've never been to it's early morning, folks. I've never been to Philadelphia before. I'm very excited now that I'm officially on the flight. We haven't even left the gate yet. We're still planing. And if you're wondering what plane I'm on, it is a CRJ700. According to someone has a dog. See that? Yeah, someone has a dog. Cute dog. It sounds like a cute dog. It's like a little kind of thing. Anyway, I'm the exit row steward here. And only way to fly. Let's see here. Looked like it was raining here. Have a look.
That's another one. That's another one, folks.
Going there courtesy of good old United Airlines. Still the world's greatest airline. I don't care what anyone else says. So stay tuned and subscribe. See you at the draft.
Yeah, there's another one I have that gives you a better idea of just how small the plane is, how these folks are scrunched together. It wasn't, I'm just being candid here, it wasn't my favorite plane to fly. That was a 747 for obvious reasons. It's big. But, you know, cost cutting and fuel saving, you know, being what it is, these planes became more in vogue to use by airlines like United and American Airlines. And so I had to get used to flying them. Yeah, CRJ is, yes, Canadair Regional Jet. That's correct. Here is another view of it from takeoff and landing from my video here. All right, this is another video right there. See, they were landing at Indianapolis in the Indy flyover. David says the CRJ Canadair Regional Jet, of course, will have TCAS, but he's not sure about the military aircraft. And again, hey Dave, welcome. What we're all kind of tweaked about is that the video clearly shows that. Yeah, that was the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, folks, by the way. Yeah, clearly shows the. See, it's just a common aircraft, passenger airplane, and so you get a sense of what the passengers experience when they get on it. This is rather long. We come in and landing here, all right, and
stop at the gate, and the captain has turned off the fasten seatbelt sign.
Fast forward there.
At this time, please ensure that you have all your personal belongings. Please be careful. Opening of the headbands, such contents may have shipped during flight. Please emit smoke after.
And then we get to the plane here, right? So, and again, there's a bunch. You see how small they are, and again, in the plane itself, if you can see behind, the passengers are not far from you. Okay, you can tell by the way the wall is designed and everything else. But anyway, just give you a sense of what the plane is about. I've got a lot more videos than that. I'll go back here now. Okay.
And turn into a recovery mission on what is a moonless night in the nation's capital, and an incredibly difficult scene for crews there on the banks of the Potomac River. You can see the incredible response at Reagan National Airport, where this flight was slated to land from Wichita, Kansas at about 8:50 Eastern time. So we're talking less than 3 hours ago. This Canadair regional jet, a CRJ700 with 60 passengers on board and four crew, a nearly full flight as it was on its way into Reagan National Airport, lined up to land from the south, which is the typical approach path called the Mount Vernon approach into National Airport, the busiest runway in the National Airspace System, runway 1, and then swung out to the right, a maneuver typically used by air traffic controllers to try and make the flow of planes go a little bit faster and get another airplane in, a very crammed system, and swung out to the right to try and land on a northwesterly runway called runway 33. That is apparently when this collision happened, when this flight was about only a few hundred feet above the ground. And this is the video that investigators will, of course, be looking at. You can see the fireball take place there, what appears to be the helicopter coming from the left side of your screen, the flight on approach into runway 33 there in the center. That is the explosion, and of course, parts falling to the ground there.
I mean, it's sickening to see that video.
And the big thing here, and this is something investigators will also want to look at, is whether or not there was any warning in the cockpit. And so there are so many blind spots in an airplane, and a crew on approach. This is not the same type of airplane. This is slightly different, but a crew on approach into a runway, they're typically looking at the runway. I can tell you as a pilot, as a flight instructor, you are intensely focused on what is unfolding in front of you. Not a lot of times you're looking left and right for other airplanes, or in this case, helicopters. This is a very, very congested piece of airspace. So as the flight was descending, it's possible that they may have not been able to see a helicopter apparently coming from their right. And it's possible also that the systems on board in the cockpit of a commercial airliner, TCAS, traffic collision avoidance system, may have not been able to even warn them of an impending...
I'm just going to freeze what he's saying for a second, folks, because I want to show you, this is another video. Dave, you said you've flown on a couple of times. I've flown on a bunch of times. I got the videos to prove it. Let me show you this. This one right here. All right. This is, you can see how the interior is, how close the passengers are. Dave was right. We call it a pole jumper because it is small. See, look.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our final descent to San Francisco. Just I'm going to ask you to please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened, hair and stowed. With a reminder of this flight, no stray tables and seat back must be placed in the upright and locked position. All hair and items properly stowed and not over been in a bag underneath the seat in front of you. You may continue the use of those small handheld alternative devices as long as you keep this in the airplane mode. However, larger alternative devices like computers and DVD players need to be powered off and stayed away at this time. Larger alternative devices need to remain off until we reach the gate. I will be passing through the cabin with the trash bag to collect any items. Symbolize for this garden. Please take a quick look in that seatbelt pocket in front of you. Bringing each of our magazine, water bottle, anything you do not wish to take with you, I will be more than happy to retrieve.
So now you have an idea of what it looks like inside, okay?
Coming into landing in San Francisco.
That's my mom. Okay, so yeah, so you have an idea now of what it's like, looks like inside, all right?
West Bank of the Potomac, on the Virginia side in Arlington, Virginia. On the east side of the Potomac, that is where there is Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. That is the home of the presidential helicopter fleet. There is a lot of military traffic over there, over DC 295. You can see the highway there, and then going up to DC to the north and the banks of the Anacostia. So this is incredibly jammed and incredibly busy. And the airspace right now, very sadly, is jammed even.
Tanasi says, so the air traffic control had someone say, did you see the CRJ? Does that mean the CRJ wasn't expected to be there? I think it was more that the helicopter wasn't expected to be in that path, but it wasn't clear. David says, sadly, in a mid-air collision, and CRJ will not provide a lot of room to escape or crush. David, he says, the luggage hold is small and right below you. Actually, no, David, the luggage hold, me luggage hold, like, well, there's two places. Hold on a second. Let me show you what's going on here, because I don't want to have misinformation out here as far as the plane. Let me freeze that. Yeah. Hey, Dave. Hey, Dave. There's actually two places to have your luggage. Okay. This is CRJ700. You can put your luggage up here. All right. You can also put it below your seat. If you're talking about the main hole below the plane, yeah. Okay, but I'm saying you can also put your luggage up here, all right? So I just want to make that clear. Luggage is not such that can only be stored down below. It can be stored up here too, okay? So I'll make that clear, all right? So, hey, Dave, you want me to show you something about the CRJ? Just say so. I'm happy to do it. All right, hold on a second.
The Reagan National Airport, where, as Pete just mentioned, the people here. This search is very much still underway for survivors, Laura.
It absolutely is. And just imagine the people who were on the plane They were so close to the runway that they would likely have been able to see that they were about to land when this collision would have occurred.
Dave.
I want to go to Gabe Cohen, who's actually inside of the...
Yeah, David's saying, yeah, the inside is carry-on. The bigger bags are stowed below. Well, yeah, right. The bigger bags are still below. And I think you're talking about just the way it looks bigger. Okay. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
At the scene in the water, still searching for any survivors. We know at least part of the plane is in the Potomac, at least part of it is underwater right now. Beyond that, I don't know much more about what the scene looks like, except that what we have been able to see from this vantage point, we are at Reagan National, we're at the airport right now, just driving around the Maryland side, the Virginia side, we could see dozens, if not hundreds, of law enforcement vehicles, officers with flashlights pointed at the water. I can tell you, a law enforcement source has told me that just about every agency in the region is responding to this right now. But that same source painted a very grim picture, who's at the scene, about what it looks like. It's something Pete talked about before, when this goes from being a search and rescue operation to a recovery effort. The more sources I speak with tonight, there is a really somber tone, but right now there is certainly a search operation that is well underway, and they are hopeful that they're going to potentially be able to find people in the water. But time is running out, as we have said. We are at the airport hoping to get some sort of update here in the next little while. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen. But again, we're continuing to talk to our sources in law enforcement who are at the scene as it all develops.
As you say, the night is pitch black out here, but for the lights of the runway where this plane ought to have landed a little more than an hour and a half ago, carrying about 60 passengers, 4 crew members, and colliding with a Blackhawk carrying military personnel less than a few miles away.
See, it didn't collide with it. In fact, look, this person on Twitter writes, how does one of the most advanced military helicopters in the world crash directly into a plane with clear conditions? I could understand if it was foggy, heavy snowing, or rainstorm, but it's a clear night. The Blackhawk flies directly into the American Airlines plane. And we have the air controller saying, did you see the CRJ? Okay? And David says, if it's in the water, it will be like Air Florida in 1980s. Lots of drowning due to hypothermia. Oh, my Lord. And Dave says, I doubt the Blackhawk crew survived. Prayers for the Blackhawk crew, folks. Lord, take them and take care of them. Anyway, it's very sad. Okay. All right. We've got, what else do we have here? Our plane to D.C. diverted from Reagan Airport due to the plane crash. The passenger jet collided with Blackhawk midair. See, again, here's another reporting, right? Because they're under the impression that it was the passenger jet and not the helicopter. Okay? The military Blackhawk that crashed into an American Airlines flight was reportedly flying dark. Per what? ADSB exchange, the chopper was not broadcasting an ADSB signal at the time. It just had been found submerged in the Potomac River. It has just been found submerged. You see this, folks? You see this, folks? It has just been found submerged in the Potomac River, and first responders say there are no viable victims inside. There you go. All right? Okay? There you go. There you go. Okay? Hey, Dave, I'm looking at this. I think you're probably referring to CNN. I'm not, but I'm talking about this. This person breaking says a military Blackhawk that crashed, all right, into an American Airlines flight in Washington, D.C. was reportedly flying dark. Per ADSB exchange, the chopper was not broadcasting an ADSB signal at the time. It had just been found submerged. It has just been found submerged in the Potomac River, and first responders say there are likely no viable victims inside. My God. Why was it flying dark? All right. I mean, anybody out there? Speculation. Why was it flying dark? So those of you who know more about, the process of flying than certainly I do, from a pilot standpoint, I'm a passenger, obviously, but why was it flying dark? Okay. Question, anybody out there? Hold on a second. We got a guy out here at military around DC flight secrecy. Wait. David says they fly dark for secrecy. Well, don't you think this is a time when they shouldn't have done it? I mean, I'm just saying, all right? And it begs a question. Why are they flying dark for secrecy? For what purpose? To run into an airplane? I'm just wondering, okay? Man, listen to this.
Are just about a week after the inauguration, which of course led it to be inside because of the frigid temperatures, not the normal parade outside. It was that cold, but a mere week ago. And here we are in front of a body of water where divers are now desperately searching to see if they can recover anyone or rescue anyone. Right now, we're in this very difficult and stressful time for everyone who is desperate to understand. Caitlin, how could this have happened? How could it have happened in one of the nation's busiest airports, just yards, frankly, from where they would have ultimately landed safely passengers on a regional aircraft that is doing flights for American Airlines, colliding with a Blackhawk helicopter less than a mile or two away from our nation's Pentagon? This is a surreal moment in the pitch black, the water to match, and divers desperate for some flicker of hope, hoping that there is life that is on that plane after we have seen this devastating explosion in this water just outside our nation's capital. Caitlin?
Yeah, obviously that effort underway right now, and I should note this is a whole of government approach that we are seeing. The Transportation Secretary, who was just sworn in a few hours ago, says he is at the FAA headquarters here in Washington monitoring this. The new DHS Secretary, Kristi Noem, says they have deployed the Coast Guard to help in that response that you saw there behind Laura, and this is also being monitored from the Pentagon, given the fact that it was a Blackhawk helicopter involved here in this crash. Joining me on the phone right now is Congressman Eric Swalwell, Democrat of California. And Congressman, I know that you were at the airport just minutes before the crash. Tell us what you saw.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. I was flying from Houston to D.C. I'd been visiting my parents and landed at 8:42. And by the time I was in the car, was seeing on Twitter and social media, what had happened. But like many of you are witnesses, I didn't see or hear it at first. And so, my thoughts are with those on board and their families and hoping that the police and fire are successful. But, with many of us who, commute to the D.C. area, we know that flight path. It's so road.
Oh, David says flying dark is sadly common around the president. Okay.
As you're on approach. But yes, there are so many aircraft in the area every single day, not just Blackhawk helicopters, but also the national parks have helicopters that are flying through. Of course, the Marine One fleet is coming through, and it's a crowded airspace, but they usually compete with that.
Yeah, anyone who has flown into DCA, I mean, I've been on many regional planes flying into this airport and landing here, and you said you landed at about 8:42. It was about 8:48 when this plane, I should note, was scheduled to land at Reagan Airport before this crash happened, and we're seeing just the response right now.
Hey, folks, Eric, another person who was coming in from DCA. I know Eric, by the way, I've known him for years, but there's an example I'm talking about. Here's another dignitary who comes in to using Reagan, airport. And so who was on that flight?
For commercial flights, for civilian flights. We also know that, this doesn't happen a lot in America. And the reason it doesn't happen a lot is because the National Transportation Safety Board is really good at learning from these incidents. You can go back about 15 years to the last incident, and, I'm a child of the 90s and the 2000s, where you had the TWA crash and the Rockaway Queens American Airlines crash, and we learned a lot about that. And what we learn always makes us better and safer. And so because we haven't had an incident like this, it's going to be so important that we understand, what caused this, what can we learn from this, and how do we continue to have so much traffic in this crowded capital that people can be safe.
Yeah, and the FAA has just said that Reagan Airport is going to be closed until at least 5 a.m. tomorrow morning as this massive response is underway right now as we're looking into this. And this is a Blackhawk helicopter. Obviously, you talked about the many different types of helicopter that fly on this path right over the Potomac. If you live in Washington, you hear them all the time. It's not even surprising to see a helicopter fly by. We are hearing from the Pentagon that no senior U.S. officials were on board. 3 U.S. Army service members were on board that Blackhawk helicopter. What questions do you have for the Pentagon right now?
Yeah, I mean, and to me, I don't care, what the rank was. We likely lost, military lives in that helicopter, and that's a tragedy. But what I want to know is, what do we need to do so that they can operate safely, do the business and reconnaissance and training they need to do, but also not interfere with civilian aircraft. They're not flying at the nap of the Earth, which is as low as you would fly in training to avoid detection, but they do fly pretty low. And that, as I said, is a crowded airspace. And you have traffic not just from DC, but you have Dulles, BWI, Andrews Air Force Base in the vicinity. And so it's a lot for us to look at. But right now, as I see these emergency response vehicles and their lights in the water, I'm just hoping that they can pull some lives out and give us some hope here.
Yeah, and we know at least 67 people, from 60 people being on that plane, 4 flight attendants, and 4 crew, and 3 U.S. Army soldiers on that helicopter. Congressman, thank you for joining us. Glad you're safe, and of course our prayers are with every family involved here. I should note American Airlines has just put out an 800 number for anyone who believes that their loved ones were on this flight, for people to call in to seek more information. CNN's aviation correspondent Pete Montine is back here with me. And Pete, when was the last time we had
Tell us the 800.
a fatal airline crash like this, a commercial airline in the United States?
Okay, so now we gotta go, and now we gotta go get the 800 number because she says American put it out, but she couldn't recite it on the air. What is this? What's going on here, folks? Are you anybody getting that? I'm not. I mean, who does that? Excuse me for a second. I'm gonna get this on. I'm going to American Air. There's American Air right here. And let's see here. I'll point this out right here. American Airlines says American Airlines en route from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. was involved in an accident. DCA, get the latest updates on our newsroom. Then we are aware of reports there. Okay. Let's see here. I don't see the phone number. Let me see here. Let's see. Extremely likely this was deliberate. Very rare for a military helicopter to crash directly into an airplane. Still looking for that phone number though. I don't see it. At all. Let me try something here. That's, let me see, this says information. We click on that. See where that takes us. Information regarding American Eagle Flight 5342. 60 passengers. Our concern is for the passengers and crew. Here we are. Okay, folks, if you believe you may have loved ones on board Flight 5342, call American Airlines toll-free at 800-679-8215. That's 800-679-8215. Again, that's 800. Can someone type this in the post as well, too? That would be much appreciated. 800-679-8215. I repeat, if you believe you may have loved ones on board flight who were on board flight 5342, call American Airlines toll free at 800-679-8215. Again, 800-679-8215. CNN should be putting this out as well. That's shameful. That is absolutely shameful. Okay. Those calling from outside the United States can visit news.aa.com for additional phone numbers. Family members in Canada, Puerto Rico, or the U.S. Virgin Islands can call 800-679-8215. 800-679-8215. American Airlines will continue to release information as it becomes available. Please monitor news.aa.com, which is what this is, okay? And American's official X account at American Air for the latest information. Again, the phone number, 800-679-8215, all right? Please spread that number around, folks, on Twitter or Facebook. You don't know who's out there, who's watching it, who much appreciates seeing this, because, you know, Caitlin could have mentioned it herself on air, and that's crazy that she didn't. She just said the hotline is there. They have a number, okay? So anyway, let's go back to what they're saying.
That are used in civilian flights. So sometimes, and I know this as a pilot, you hear controllers speaking to a military flight, but essentially if you're a civilian pilot like I am, you don't hear the military flight respond on the other end. And there is some air traffic control audio surfacing now where the controllers in the tower at Reagan National Airport essentially tried to communicate to the pilots in the Blackhawk, saying that there was a commercial flight near them. Do you see it? And so we are sort of ingesting that now and trying to go through it and parse it out. But that will be really critical for investigators here too. Not only do they have the recordings from on board the flight, on board this PSA flight operating on behalf of American Airlines, but also the recordings and the tapes from the control tower and what was taking place there. And so they have so much now to compile and cull through. This investigation, of course, will take months, if not years, to reach a final conclusion of exactly where the major screw-ups were. And this was one of colossal proportions.
Yeah, and again, we are watching the live rescue underway outside Reagan National Airport over the Potomac, where a plane crashed midair with a Blackhawk helicopter. I want to go back to Laura Coates, who's live on the scene for us.
What Pete was just describing, the agony of waiting to figure out what has happened here through an investigation or otherwise, the 67 people who are waiting to find out whether their loved ones were on board this aircraft, whether they are safe tonight, whether they can, in fact, be rescued. Right behind me on this Potomac River, where you see all of the different lights flashing, desperate with divers to figure out if they can salvage anything, get any information. I want to go right to Oren Lieberman, who is a hop, skip, and a jump away at our nation's Pentagon tonight. Oren, what are you learning tonight about the investigation so far, and what about this Blackhawk helicopter?
We've learned just a bit more information about the source of the U.S. Army Blackhawk helicopter, a UH-60 Blackhawk helicopter that was on a routine training, according to a spokeswoman for the Joint Task Force National Capital Region. So a standard flight, at least a fairly standard flight for the Blackhawks we see flying all the time up and down the Potomac and through the National Capital Region, through the airspace that Blackhawks in this area would have been very familiar with. There was a crew of 3 on board the Blackhawk helicopter. We have learned that already. So the information here is that the flight was, according to a spokeswoman for Joint Task Force National Capital Region, out of Davison Army Airfield, Fort Belvoir, which is about 10, 11, 12 miles south-southwest, really almost due south, frankly, of Reagan National Airport, and had been flying in this region. It is unclear at this point how long the Army Blackhawk had been in the air, but again, the military at this point, the Army and the Joint Task Force that's in charge of this flight in this area, says the flight was on a routine training flight and was operating in this area. The question, of course, and this is what we've been talking about here, what went wrong that made this such a catastrophic event?
Hold on, one of my viewers is reporting an eyewitness said he noticed the jet getting ready to land, everything seemed normal. The jet was about 150 feet when the jet suddenly banked 90 degrees with sparks underneath it. The guy said he never saw a Blackhawk helicopter. Wow.
That is flying in and out of the Pentagon all the time and flying around the area on training flights, on exercise flights, and this was a routine training flight until the catastrophic events of this evening.
Oren, the devastation of just thinking about what could have gone wrong and why. Thank you, Oren. Keep us posted because we are desperate to learn more information about how this could have possibly happened, particularly on a routine training flight in an area that was so close already to the Reagan National Airport where they presumably would have gone before. We're learning more information about this. I want to go to Brian Todd, who is also on the scene tonight. Brian, what are you learning? What are you seeing? Tell us, give us your eyes.
Well, Laura, we can show you what we believe are new assets being deployed here. I'm gonna step out of the frame of the camera and let our photojournalist David Brooks go straight ahead past me in the water, just slightly to our right. This is the first time we've actually been able to get a decent view of boats in the water. We can see at least 4, where you see those kind of spaced apart flashing lights straight ahead. David's going to go in as close as he can there. That's our first look at actual boats in the water that we can discern from the vantage point where we are, which is Dangerfield Marina, just south of Reagan National Airport on the Virginia side. Also, again, they are pouring every possible asset into this area for search and rescue. Over to the right of these boats is one of the main staging areas near Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, which is an Air Force base in southeast Washington, D.C. That's a staging area, but again, our first look at boats in the water over here to the center. Now, again, we don't know if that is the location of the downed plane and helicopter. We do know that according to Maryland Governor Wes Moore, that the Maryland State Police have deployed divers in the water. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin has told CNN that several search and rescue assets from the state of Virginia have joined in the search and rescue effort. A little bit more information, what we can tell you is that according to DC Police and Fire, the calls started coming in about this accident at 8:53 p.m. And again, to recap, this was American Airlines Flight 5342 operated by PSA Airlines coming from Wichita, Kansas to this area, about to land at Reagan National Airport. American Airlines saying 60 passengers were on board, 4 crew members. There were 3 crew members aboard the Army Blackhawk helicopter, which was operating out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia, which is near George Washington's home, Mount Vernon. We have no word on casualties yet at this hour, but again, assets being deployed all over the place. You see David's training his camera there on these helicopters. That was the first glimpse we had actually got. We had seen helicopters in the air a short time ago, but this was the first glimpse we got of a helicopter actually training its spotlight on the water. And you can see he's kind of banking there and he's coming back. And again, we'll take you back over to where the boats we can see are being deployed. Again, we do know those are vessels in the water. We do if that is the actual location of where the plane is in the water at this time. So that's what just more and more assets being deployed here. And again, I heard you and your guests and some of the experts talking about the air traffic that is constantly operating in this area. And, it is true that military aircraft are always flying at low altitude, north, south, east, and west, all around Reagan Airport, because there are so many military bases, so many airstrips, so many helicopter pads at the Pentagon, Fort Belvoir, and elsewhere. You constantly see helicopter traffic flying low over the water on training missions and other flights. And that combined with the air traffic that comes into Reagan National Airport minute by minute by minute, it is a very, very busy and, as you can now see, potentially very dangerous situation when so many aircraft are in the air all at once in a concentrated area like this one.
Brian, to have that spotlight or area trained, the Blackwater We don't know anything about the exact location of this downed aircraft and aircrafts, but to have the concentration of resources, as you described, this whole of government, this DMV, as it's known, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, this is at the intersection, Caitlin, of these three different areas, this Potomac River, the concentration of all of these resources trained on what is behind us, desperate on this cold evening to try to rescue any of the 67 people collectively between the aircraft and the Blackhawk helicopter close to our nation's Pentagon, right here behind me. Remember, we're just a week removed, Caitlin, from the frigid temperatures that prevented the inauguration from even being outside. The water remaining cold, and here we are tonight waiting desperately to see if the divers who are in a race against time, can they save the lives? The families are desperate to learn what has happened. I know you've mentioned, Caitlin, that American Airlines has a number for those who believe that their loved ones may be affected to call. They are desperate for information, these divers, desperate to save.
Yeah, American Airlines has posted that number on their website, and as this search is still very much underway, it did get warmer here in Washington. It's about 50 degrees today, but the National Weather Service warns that water that you're looking at here in the Potomac is still very cold right now. It's about 30 degrees from our latest update from them, and so obviously that is part of the factor into this search and rescue effort that is underway right now. Joining us is Tim Taylor, the CEO of Tiburon Subsea. It's an underwater exploration company, and he's here to help us understand what this search and rescue effort looks like right now. And thank you so much, Tim, for joining me. First off, just I think the question, and as Pete Muntean was saying earlier, when an airport is this close to the water, they have a plan in case something like this happens, a tragedy like this does strike and unfold. But can you tell us where something like this starts, especially when the water is about 30 degrees?
Well, I mean, it couldn't have happened at pretty much a worse time. Nighttime, dark, cold water, wintertime. So they've got everything going against them. But response time is, you have to assess the situation. You have to put people in the water. And as a diver, if you're going in this water, it's pitch black. It's unknown territory. There's wreckage. There could be anything that's hazardous in there because of the crash itself. And then trying to access the plane itself. So there are a lot of factors. It's a river, there's moving water, and conditions change by the second down there. There's things, current flows, and assuming, trying to assume a lot here. The plane went down. It's relatively shallow water, so that's a plus. They're not deep water, but there was an impact. They crashed. So in this kind of temperature,
out there.
35 degrees, you've got about an hour in the best of conditions, if not even suffering from trauma. So the clock is the fact.
Yeah. And I want to
could it be
know
in the
too,
plane? Could it be in there? Possibly. So there's things that could play in people's favor. So.
And Tim, this search and rescue effort is very much still underway, but I do want to note that a law enforcement source is telling my colleague Gabe Cohen there are confirmed fatalities, and that right now, as of this moment, rescuers have not pulled any survivors from the water.
Oh, no.
I do want to stress and emphasize these rescue efforts are continuing, and this source told Gabe Cohen the plane is in pieces in the water and that the helicopter is nearby. It's almost sickening to say that and to report that as this is underway. Can you just, if you're looking for someone in this water, in the dark, in the cold, it's difficult enough, Tim, but when you have a plane that is in multiple pieces in the water, according to what this law enforcement source is telling Gabe Cohen, how does that affect in terms of also making sure the first responders are being careful and safe?
I typically, in today's day and age, most fire departments and emergency response personnel or teams have a small remote operated vehicle, something that would fit in the trunk of your car that has like an extension cord on it. Basically, it can dive to 100 feet and 500 feet of line, and it's run off a laptop or a handheld remote control like a video game, and you can launch it and run it and send it down and look. And it has sonar on it, so you can do a full mapping rather quickly of the area. You can scan the area with sonar and actually create a map in almost real time, and so the divers will know what they're going into. So you're not going in totally blind, but you've got underwater at night. in the dark, you can only see what your light can see. So if you had to walk around your house with only a flashlight, you're only seeing what you see with the flashlight at any one given time. And the sonar helps them see what's there. There are also handheld sonar devices for divers. I'm not sure if they'll be equipped at this. A lot of military personnel are equipped with this kind of gear that can actually use sonar and give a display to the diver as he swims through in the middle of the night, so he can see much farther ahead of him, not just the 20 feet invisibility. Sound can shoot through water for hundreds of meters if you got the right frequency, and give you an image of what's in front of you, so you've got eyes down there. So there's some tools that are I'm sure on site, and they're utilizing them. But if you're reporting that they haven't recovered anybody at this particular time, it's not a good thing.
Because just to remind everyone from the time here, it's 11:41 p.m. Eastern right now. This plane was scheduled to land at 8:48 p.m. Eastern. Obviously, it was a few moments before that when this collision happened. As we started to learn more, I mean, that would put at about 3 hours since this crash first happened. As far as that looks like, you were talking about the water and the temperature and what that looks like. What other kind of equipment can these first responders be using? We saw rescue boats being unloaded earlier right outside the airport. What else can they be using right now?
Well, I mean, they're limited in what they have. They have the tools, the boats, the divers, the sonar if they have it, the ROVs if they have them on site. If anybody survived the crash and got out of the plane at the moment of crash, they're in the river. And if they're in the river, the river's moving with a current. So every minute goes by, they're moving away from the site. So that would have been the first response.
I need to put this here because there's a gentleman here who was waiting for his wife. This was posted just 19 minutes ago on Twitter. And here. Folks,
that would have been the first response.
I need to put this here because there's a gentleman here who was waiting for his wife. This was posted just 19 minutes ago. Put me on silent. Twitter. Sorry about that, folks. And he clear all this up here. All right, and then let me go back here so I can actually put this here. All right.
Pulling her out of I'm just praying that somebody's pulling her out of the river right now as we speak. That's all I can pray for. I'm just praying to God.
When was the last time you spoke with her?
She texted me that they were landing in 20 minutes.
Can you show us a text message that you got from her?
Landing in 20 minutes. The rest of my text did not get delivered. That's when I realized something might be up.
Wow.
I'm just praying that somebody's pulling her out of the river right now as we speak. That's all I can pray for. I'm just praying to God.
Hasn't been reported yet. Nope. Go back here.
Torn up clothing, torn up baggage, there's all sorts of, electrical wires. A wreck is a dangerous place to go into at any time. Something like this that just happened is even more treacherous for divers, because you get in there and you're trying to get in and you catch on things and you get tangled on things and you follow your own gear in this situation and then put yourself in danger. So everything has to be, they have to be skilled, and they have to go slow and try to make it happen when obviously you need to not go slow in a situation like this and get these people, execute the rescue if you can. So.
Yeah, and obviously we are praying that they do and that they are able to pull survivors from this right now. Our law enforcement source is telling my colleague Gu Cohen so far that has not happened. We're continuing to monitor this very closely. Tim Taylor, thank you for joining with that expertise. I want you to stand by. CNN's Pete Muntean is here as far as there's real questions on what this investigation is going to be like. And when we hear from officials, understandably right now, the NTSB, the FAA, they are preoccupied with dealing with this. Typically, when would we hear from them for something this major?
Usually straight away from the National Transportation Safety Board, and likely tonight from NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy. We know that newly confirmed Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is at the FAA headquarters right now monitoring this. This is something where top to bottom government will be involved, not only at the federal level, but also at the state level, the district, Maryland, and Virginia, all lending resources here to this what is apparently right now a search and rescue operation, although as we just heard, it is a race against time, and this could very easily be a search and recovery operation in not too long a period of time, because we know the water temperature today, even though it is a much warmer day here in Washington that we have seen, it broken the cold streak of what we saw last week, about 50 degrees outside air temperature today, but the water temperature about 35 degrees right now. Hypothermia can set in truly in a matter of minutes, maybe in an hour at the best case scenario. So this is something where investigators will so have their work cut out for them. But really the focus right now will be finding this airplane, finding any possible survivors, and getting them to shore. We have essentially, the golden hour really has come and gone, if we're putting it bluntly. And this is truly a tragedy that we're watching unfold on the Potomac River right now.
Yeah, we're hitting the 3-hour mark since this crash happened. That American Airlines plane was scheduled to land at 8:48 p.m. Eastern. It is now 11:46 p.m. Eastern. Pete, you are aviation correspondent, but for people, and we can see a helicopter right now with a searchlight on that water as we are seeing here. And Gabe Cohen noted that the plane is in...
Fox News is reporting that 4 people were pulled from the Potomac River. And that didn't come out on CNN yet, so for whatever reason. I think they're trying to confirm it.
To make sure they are following all of the updates they are getting.
Yeah, and it's possible here, and we don't want to speculate, but it's possible here that just nobody saw the collision that was clearly about to unfold here.
Yeah, there are blind spots when you're... Explain that to me again.
You know, I have a couple models here, and, you know, in an airplane... you can't see everything. It's not a 360-degree view. So especially, and we've seen this in other incidents and other notable mid-air collisions where...
freeze this, folks. Update. 19 bodies recovered from Washington, D.C. plane crash so far. I repeat, 19 bodies recovered from Washington, D.C. plane crash so far. Don't know why CNN is so slow with the news, but they are... kind regarding copyright, so I stay with them. But yeah, 19. Breaking news, rescue crews have found 4 survivors from the helicopter. They're survivors, folks. Yay. 4 survivors from the Blackhawk helicopter, American Airlines plane that collided near Reagan International Airport. Searchers are also looking for survivors in the Potomac River. Source NBC for DC. NBC for DC. That's the source, okay? So, yeah, NBC for DC. Might be worth going, trying to get over there too, folks, you know? NBC for DC. Hold on a second.
Doing night vision goggle training. They may be doing takeoffs and landings. They may just be out ferrying an airplane or a helicopter from one place to another. So a night is a totally different bailiwick when it comes to flying, and it is really something that is much more complicated than flying, especially in the daytime when you can see things. You have so much more visibility. But I just flew at night the other night, coming back from New Hampshire in a Bonanza, and you can see airplanes much more clearly. And my fiance in the right seat even commented, you know, you can see so much more at night because you can see the lights of airplanes and helicopters from a much further distance away. Sometimes it can be harder to find the thing that you're looking for in the daytime.
And obviously, we were just thinking of all the families and people who are in limbo right now, waiting for news about their loved ones as we are watching this. At least 60 people on board that plane, passengers, 4 crew members, and 3 U.S. members of the Army on board that helicopter, that Blackhawk helicopter. CNN's Gabe Cohen is at Reagan National Airport, where he's been reporting. Gabe, the airport has obviously been shut down until 5 a.m. at least tomorrow morning. What is the latest that you're seeing there?
Yeah, Caitlin, that's right. There's an emergency alert up on the screens around us that says, due to an emergency situation, all flights are being held on the airfield. We are expecting a press conference here at least by 12:30, although we could see officials arrive even before then. And look, you went through some of our new reporting just a couple minutes ago, but I've spoken to law enforcement sources who are there at the scene who paint a really grim picture of what they're seeing. As you mentioned, the plane, as they describe it, is in pieces. The helicopter is in the water nearby. I have learned that helicopter is moving around in the water a little bit. It's bobbing up and down, and that's making the search and rescue operation extremely difficult and unstable for divers who are there trying to search for any survivors. We have confirmed there are fatalities at the scene, and at this point, no survivors.
See, they're saying fatalities. These folks are saying they're survivors. And here's where things get mixed up, okay? All right? We have two sources saying there's 4 survivors, right? He's saying there are no survivors, okay? And I know CNN prides itself on checking, on confirming before reporting. I get that. Dave says, I have heard Marine pilots say that they're trained low terrain DC night vision practice to evacuate the president in case of a nuclear attack. I get the training, but my point is, how could you miss a CRJ700 Canadair? You know, anyway.
We do hear from officials. We'll see if they come earlier. You can see still underway. This search very much, they are using spotlights over the Potomac right now, trying desperately to find people who were on board either that plane or that Blackhawk helicopter. Laura Coates is live on the scene for CNN. Laura, I want to go back to you.
I'm here with Brian Todd, and as we have just discussed, there are some new assets being deployed. They are not giving up. There are 67 lives at stake here. These divers diving in frigid water a week after frigid temperature in Washington, D.C. We're outside the Potomac River. Tell us what you're seeing here about these deployed assets.
Right, Laura. So you and I can kind of split apart a little bit, and our photojournalist, Nick Lineback, can train his camera in more toward the center here. And in the center, you can see what we believe are boats in the water straight ahead. I'm making out maybe 4, but it could be more. It's just very hard to see the numbers there. But boats in the water straight ahead of us. Also in the air, there have been 2 helicopters circling kind of in oval formations, fairly consistently over the water. At least one of them, has had his spotlight trained on the water as they try to pull people out there. You guys talked about the weather. We've heard that the water temperature is about 35 degrees. Very, very tough to survive more than a couple of minutes in that.
Folks, I got an update from Citizen App. 19 bodies have been pulled out of the water. I don't know. CNN needs to get its head out of the butt and start reporting what everybody else is reading on social media, or if they don't have the information, just say so. That's ridiculous.
Or has deployed its state police divers in there. The state of Virginia has brought many assets, search and rescue assets, to join in. So you know they've got divers in the water. They're working constantly to try to pull those people out. But it is a pretty grim picture, even with all these assets. And we can see, as you said, Laura, we can see staging areas at Reagan National to the left, over at Joint Base Anacostia Bowling to the right, and again, there's a chopper there. So they're just working tirelessly tonight.
And they're covering a pretty wide area as they're going around, trying to circulate around this particular area. They've got choppers that are going lower to the water. This spotlight has been trained on an increasingly wide area. Presumably, obviously, there is a current in the water. Yes. They are seeking to expand the scope of the search even in this fixed area. But you have this clear night, but this black water, but a spotlight to actually guide their way. Divers also have to guard against the risk of hypothermia, even with their wetsuits and beyond. They cannot stay in the water for long periods of time. And we're talking about 67 lives.
That's right. Interesting that you mentioned the currents. The Potomac River is a tidal river, but there are a lot of undercurrents in this river that go every which way. That's got to be complicating things as well. We're on a very wide section of the river. It comes, it's very narrow just north of us. It widens out right about where we are at Reagan National Airport. Really widens out, but the undercurrents and the tides, that's got to be working against them as well as the temperatures and the lack of visibility tonight.
Absolutely, and not more than a week ago, you had about a mile down the road a truck going over a bridge. It took them more than a day to even be able to try to recover them from the river as well. Yeah. The water's frigid still. We are not more than a week or so removed from frigid temperatures of inauguration, forcing it to even go inside. We are close to the Pentagon as well. This was a training exercise, we're told, with the Blackhawk helicopter and a commercial airline. Sure. The idea that this would happen so close in this extremely busy area.
Yes. I mean, you and I were talking about this. We both lived not far away from here. Constant air traffic, helicopters, military helipads. and all of them flying low over the Potomac in every direction. You know, the controllers have to be so well coordinated just to get all this traffic around safely. And tonight, clearly something went wrong. The communication probably broke down at some point, and you have this horrible accident. Yeah.
Caitlin, the silence here of waiting is agonizing for the families and everyone waiting to know what has happened.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to feel for them right now and in this moment as everyone is just hoping for good news here as we are watching this play out. This search and rescue effort still underway. You can see the boats still in the water there. You're looking live at where Laura is standing outside of Reagan National Airport. That is right by the Potomac, where this collision between this American Airlines flight and this Blackhawk helicopter carrying 3 members of the U.S. military happened. I want to bring in CNN's Tom Foreman for an aerial look at the Reagan Airport and what we are seeing here. Tom, can you just kind of walk us through the flight paths and what we were looking at as to where this flight occurred just about 3 hours ago?
Yeah, it's helpful to have an idea of how this all lays out. If you've been to D.C., the Capitol, the White House, all of that's up here, the Pentagon's up here, so to give you a little lay of the land, that's north up there. Pete's been talking all evening about the runway they were originally headed for. That's this one, right through here. They did not go that way. They diverted off to come in on this one over here, which is a different runway. That's the direction they were coming in from to land at this very busy airport. If you look at Flight Radar 24, you can also see the tracking on this plane of where it was coming in over this way. We've had witnesses over here talk about seeing the plane and seeing it turn so they can see the whole belly of the plane at one point. We have witnesses up here who've told us on air about seeing the accident. So this is the area we're talking about. The river is not terribly wide here. This plane was actually truly within seconds of touching down when all this happened. The type of plane, this is not the plane, but it's the type of plane, typically has 2x2 seating inside. This is a configuration when it comes in to land, it's going to be at maybe 150 miles an hour, to put it in road terms. Pete can check on that for us. I'm sure he probably knows right off the top. The Blackhawk helicopter we're talking about, also capable of speeds like that and more. We have no idea, though, because a helicopter can also be moving quite slowly. This is a 12 to 13,000 pound vehicle, so the collision, the kinetic energy of that, absolutely immense. And we've talked an awful lot about the notion of the water down here. When we talk about the current is flowing this way, the Potomac and the Anacostia River coming together, so fairly strong current pushing down this way, and as Brian noted, a lot of counter currents. But the water temperature, yeah, that's a huge issue here. The Coast Guard would put survival, we talk about your ability to do anything, swimming or anything like that, that's usually limited to 10, 15 minutes before your muscles, your brain really struggles to function well in that kind of cold. And the Coast Guard puts survival overall at maybe an hour and a half. So we're past twice that amount of time already. So it's just a little bit of a sense of where this was all happening, and the target area being right in here. That's where a lot of the searching will happen. How wide, Caitlin? You're smart to notice. It could be very tight. It could be considerably wider. And with every hour, as we know from accidents like this, it gets further because of those currents and the other concerns. So just a little sense of the lay of the land of what they're dealing with out in the dark and out in the cold.
Yeah, and Tom Foreman, we're looking at that view. We're waiting to hear from officials with an update for us. Thank you, Tom.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Laura Coates on the scene of what is a crash between a Blackhawk helicopter and a regional aircraft operating flights on behalf of American Airlines with 60 passengers on board, 4 members of the crew colliding with the Blackhawk aircraft that had 3 members of the military. Right now, Caitlin, they are racing against time and the cold, both being enemies of the rescue efforts tonight.
Yeah, Laura, it's been just over 3 hours since that plane crashed where you are outside of Reagan National Airport in the Potomac River here in Washington. It was a flight that was supposed to land at about 8:48 p.m. Eastern here. It had taken off from Wichita, Kansas at about 6:20 our time, 5:20 Central Time in Kansas. We know there are 60 passengers on board, 4 crew members, and 3 members, as Laura mentioned there, of the U.S. military on board that Blackhawk helicopter. We are continuing to wait for a live update from officials where Laura is at the Reagan National Airport. Hopefully we will learn new information, as we know so many families and loved ones are also standing by for that information. I'm back here on set with CNN's aviation correspondent Pete Muntean. And Pete, as we've been watching, it was this massive response. And you're looking at this, if you continue to, you see there in the bottom right hand of your screen.
It's hard to watch.
It's sickening.
Right
this was
there.
shot from the Kennedy Center, a camera that was over there.
The helicopter
we could see this.
runs into the plane.
This moment that this happened in midair, something that, as you noted, has not happened in over a decade in the United States.
There's not been a major fatal commercial airline crash since the Colgan Air crash of February 12th, 2009, which was a sea change in aviation, major changes
What
in
did they
regulations.
change then?
They changed pilot qualifications and the requirements that the experience that pilots were required to have to become an airline pilot. That was really significant. There are mid-air collisions that happen in really tiny, small, little, maybe general aviation airplanes here and there, but so infrequently involving a commercial flight. And there have been plenty of warnings that this could happen involving commercial flights. One, the idea and the phenomenon of near collisions involving commercial flights really took off back at the beginning of 2023. There were plenty of scrapes, nothing that involved actual bended metal on commercial flights. There was a special impaneled safety stand-down day by the Federal Aviation Administration. The NTSB looked into incident after incident, and now they are realizing their worst fears, and investigators have been launched to this scene here on the dark Potomac River.
Freezing this, folks, because on Twitter there's a new camera angle that was posted just a few minutes ago. As you can see, it'll replay now. You see that's the plane, and then boom, it gets hit right there. You can see the helicopter comes in right here. There it is. See that flash? And the helicopter hits the plane. The plane doesn't hit the helicopter. The helicopter hits the plane. All right? As El Paso Patriot says, the helicopter looked like it went right at it to an untrained eye. Well, yeah, but what would a trained eye show? Okay? All right? Hello ran right into the CRJ. Yeah, that's exactly what we're seeing. That's exactly what we're seeing, folks. Hold on a second. Officials on the plane crash will be coming up soon.
And we're seeing an all-of-government response underway right now. We know at the White House that President Trump has been briefed. You're continuing to see these high beams over the water as this effort is going underway right now. The plane is in multiple pieces in the water, according to what a law enforcement source told our colleague Gabe Cohen. We know Sean Duffy, the brand new transportation secretary, is over at the FAA headquarters. The Coast Guard has been ordered by the DHS secretary to be involved in this, and we are waiting to hear from officials at Reagan Airport to learn new information. We are expecting that in the next half hour, and we'll obviously bring it to you live. I want to go to Cedric Layton, who is here with me. He's a CNN military analyst. And Colonel, you're here. This is a Blackhawk helicopter, and obviously people in Washington might be really familiar with this, but maybe some others aren't. And we know 3 members of the Army were on this helicopter when this crash happened. It was a training flight, we are told. Is it typical to see those kind of training flights in the evening hours?
Yes, it is, Caitlin, and it's one of those moments where they train in the evening hours in order to do things like make sure that they are proficient using night vision goggles, that they understand how to fly with instruments. Sometimes they have to use what are known as visual flight rules. So they train in all of these conditions, and especially because of the mission of the unit in question, which is the 12th Aviation Battalion at Fort Belvoir, Davison Army Airfield at Fort Belvoir. That mission is one that involves transport, often of VIPs, And also, of course, they do other things as well. But one of the key aspects of this is that they have to train in order to avoid incidents like this. They have to train in airspace that is full of commercial activity, and that is one of the big things that they, try to be very proficient in. Of course, in this particular case, we have a very tragic outcome, but the kind of activity that you often see here in the Washington area is where you see these kinds of helicopter flights. That is designed not only to make them proficient, but also to enhance their flying skills, their aviation skills, and that's really what we've seen in this particular case, where they try to maintain that proficiency, fly, using navigation aids, fly without navigation aids. Those are the kinds of things that they train for, and that's one of the things that I think they were trying to do in this particular instance that helicopter crew was trying to do.
Yeah, we're seeing these powerful floodlights being used all over the water. It's not just clear if they're just looking for maybe debris in addition to this search and rescue effort that is underway. But on this Blackhawk helicopter specifically, and the fact that it was on a training crew, people may have heard us reporting earlier that no senior U.S. officials were on board. It's typically used in Washington to transport them. Just for some context information there, why that was initially a question of who exactly was on board this helicopter and why it was flying at this hour. The Blackhawk is pretty ubiquitous. I mean, it is used by the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard. Just can you walk us through, if you're a pilot on that helicopter, what a typical flight looks like and comms and how that goes?
So the Blackhawk is, as you really mentioned, a workhorse for military aviation for all the different branches of the military. And in the Army's case, they have quite a squadron of these in the Washington area because they need it for VIP transport. If you go down Interstate 95, which takes you south of Washington into Virginia, that interstate is often overflown by Blackhawk helicopters, many of them coming from the Pentagon or going to the Pentagon, and that's where a lot of that VIP transport would take place. Sometimes they'll transport specific materials. Sometimes they will do other things where they practicing for other missions, some of those combat missions. So one of the key things to note about the Blackhawk is it's not just a transport aircraft, it is also a combat aircraft, and there are different variants of the aircraft. It's been around for quite some time in the U.S. military inventory, and it's been really designed to be a workhorse that has found its way into a lot of the conflict zones that we've fought in over the past 40 or so years. And that, makes it an aircraft where there are a lot of pilots within Army aviation who are skilled in flying the aircraft. But each environment is a unique one, so whenever they get reassigned to a new posting, to a new base, they have to learn the local area. And this may be one of those things where they were a situation where they were trying to learn the local area and familiarize themselves with the different geographic features, as well as, of course, the air traffic in the area, which, as we know, is quite crowded.
Yeah, and we just heard from the new Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that an investigation has been launched immediately by the Army and by the Department of Defense. He says that the search and rescue effort is still ongoing. We're waiting to hear from officials who were at Reagan National Airport. Colonel Cedric Layton, thank you for that and for your expertise as always. I want to go back to Laura Coates, who is live on the scene.
The unimaginable happening here, Caitlin, the idea of a Blackhawk helicopter colliding with an aircraft that is carrying passengers, 60 of them.
Folks, I just want to report again, ABC News, American Airlines Flight 5342 was involved in Wednesday night's crash near Reagan, Washington National Airport. The airline confirmed those who may have loved ones on the flight can call 800-679-8215. That is 800-679-8215. The airline told ABC News. I do not understand why CNN is not repeating this phone number.
There, watch the planes every day fly up and down, very close to the airport. And then next thing you know, we just heard an explosion. We looked to the left. My neighbor just hollered. It looks like a plane falling. So I looked down and we just saw the explosion and something falling down on the ground. And a few minutes later, we found out it was also a helicopter that crashed into the plane.
How many explosions did you hear?
I heard one explosion. And we saw almost like a firebomb and a flight going down a little bit. And then it's so dark out there, we didn't see, after that, we didn't see anything else. It was just dark.
Did you see one or two aircrafts in the sky?
I saw one aircraft. My neighbor said he thought it was another aircraft that ran into the plane. I didn't actually see that, but I did see the explosion and the plane going down.
What were you feeling in that moment when you saw what had happened?
I was just shocked. Right now, I'm still shocked. We couldn't believe it. I was just shocked.
Folks, again, the phone number is 1-800-679-8215. Again, that is 800-679-8215. For those who may have loved ones on the American Airlines 5342 flight, you can call toll-free 800-679-8215. 679-8215. 800-679-8215.
Another 5-10 minutes, that's when we saw just fire trucks, police, ambulance just coming from everywhere, coming south from the DC area, coming from Fairfax, hitting over there. They look like they were just coming from everywhere on the highway.
Yeah, Dave, you're right. It is a
Do you often see helicopters in the area as well, nearby planes here?
Oh, yeah, that's an everyday thing. From military helicopters to Coast Guard helicopters. Pretty common thing in this area.
Okay, source says fatalities occurred.
It's unbelievable and unimaginable that what you've seen tonight. Roy, thank you for telling us what you saw. Caitlin, the idea of the frequency of helicopters in this very area, near such a major and extraordinarily busy airport in the nation's capital, no less, just a few miles, not even, frankly, from our nation's Pentagon. Just a surreal moment to know that there are fatalities that have been confirmed. As divers, you see behind me, they are not giving up. You've got a helicopter in the air with a trained spotlight circling over and over and over again for at least the last hour and a half to 2 hours, hoping to be able to give some semblance of light to the divers who are fighting against time and, of course, the conditions in this water. This is not an atypically frigid time here in Washington, D.C. We're a week removed from very frigid temperatures, but the water, about 35 degrees, hypothermia is the enemy. Time is the enemy. And the current and the treacherous conditions of trying to navigate a possible explosion that might play out in the water as well. These divers' lives also in danger as they're trying desperately to give information, confirmation in this rescue effort here in the nation's capital, Caitlin.
Yeah, and as you noted, the Pentagon nearby, we do know tonight that the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, newly on the job just for a few days now, says that they have immediately launched an investigation from the Defense Department and with the Army within that as well, given the Blackhawk helicopter involved here.
Hold on a second, folks. This is American Airlines CEO Robert Isom. Just posted this a little bit ago, and we're going to make it so we can hear him and what he has to say here. One moment, please. Excuse me. There, and then, yeah, okay.
I'll not be able to answer all of them, but I do want to share the information I have at this time. American Eagle Flight 5342, operated by PSA Airlines, a CRJ700 aircraft traveling from Wichita, Kansas to Washington Reagan National Airport, has been involved in an accident near Washington, D.C. It appears to have collided with a military aircraft on approach. Flight 5342 was under the command of 4 crew members and carried 60 passengers for a total of 64 people on board. We are actively working with local, state, and federal authorities on emergency response efforts, and the American Airlines care team has been activated to assist our passengers and their families. We're cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation and will continue to provide all the information we can. Our cooperation is without pause, and we want to learn everything we can about today's events. That work will take time, but anything we can do now, we're doing. And right now, that means focusing on taking care of all passengers and crew involved, as well as their families. Members of our GO team will be on their way to Washington, D.C., and I'll be heading there shortly as well. We know that many people will be concerned for the welfare of their loved ones, and we've set up a special helpline friends and family can call at 1-800-679-8215. That's 1-800-679-8215. If you believe you've had friends or family on board American Eagle Flight 5342. We understand and appreciate that people are eager for information. Please know that we'll continue to share accurate and timely information as soon as we can. But anything we must report must be accurate. We owe that to everyone involved. Our team of highly trained professionals will be working around the clock to support our passengers, crew, and their families, however we can. And we'll update you as soon as we can. Thank you.
Okay, so what gets me though, folks, is that American CEO is now saying that the plane collided with a helicopter when the video clearly shows the opposite. Something's going on here. Now, maybe he's just repeating what he was told, but there seems to be this desire to push a narrative that's opposite from what we're seeing. And it makes me wonder what else is really going on here. And I hope that we have people on the scene that are representing the news organizations that are not afraid to ask that question and say, hey, look, why does it look to everybody in the entire doggone world like the helicopter ran into the plane, not the plane running into the helicopter? And why is there every effort to tell us who is on the helicopter, but no effort to tell us who is among the passengers? Were there any military brass on that plane? Dignitaries? What? Here, CNN is repeating this, by the way. This is
Kansas to Washington Reagan National Airport has been involved in an accident near Washington, D.C. It appears to have collided with a military aircraft on approach. Flight 5342 was under the command of 4 crew members and carried 60 passengers for a total of 64 people on board. We are actively working with local, state, and federal authorities on emergency response efforts, and the American Airlines care team has been activated to assist our passengers and their families. We're cooperating fully with the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation and will continue to provide all the information we can. Our cooperation is without pause, and we want to learn everything we can about today's events. That work will take time, but anything we can do now, we're doing. And right now, that means focusing on taking care of all passengers and crew involved, as well as their families. Members of our GO team will be on their way to Washington, D.C., and I'll be heading there shortly as well.
So we're hearing from the CEO of American Airlines. He says he is going to be heading here to the Reagan Airport on the scene of this, where we are expecting officials any moment now to hold a press conference. Miles, what stands out to you from what he said there?
And if I'm not mistaken, folks, CNN did not play the part of the clip where he mentions the hotline. I don't get that.
Potentially come up in all this harkens back to 16 years ago and the crash of the Colgan Airlines aircraft in Buffalo. You get on these aircraft, these regional aircraft, it might be painted to look like American Airlines or in the case of Colgan United, but they're actually operated by a smaller company. In this case, PSA operates it. So you do get into questions about, is the level of training, the work rules, certainly the pay, all these things get factored into the considerations on an incident like this. Was the crew up to snuff in both cases, both cockpits? So while it says American Airlines on it, you do have to read the fine print on your tickets when you get on these regionals, because in many cases, most cases actually, they're operated by different companies using the branding of the legacy carrier.
All right, thank you so much, Miles O'Brien, for that and that update, as we just heard that from the CEO of American Airlines saying he'll be headed here to the nation's capital that you're watching as this massive emergency response is very much still underway. I also have Mary Schiavo with me. She's the former Inspector General, the watchdog for the U.S. Department of Transportation. It's great to have you back here, Mary. We last spoke about 3 hours ago, right when this, a little over 3 hours ago, as this crash had first happened. You just heard there Miles O'Brien talking about, you know, you got to read the fine print on your plane ticket because, yes, it is American Airlines, but it is operated by PSA. How does that factor into the plane, the aircraft itself, as far as standards go?
It doesn't. Hold on a second. Hey, folks, I got to say something here because this is disturbing. You and I and a number of people have noted that the helicopter ran into the plane. Yet you have the official media line being, well, the plane collided with a helicopter. And now we're talking about, well, oh, this is a substandard airline and all this other stuff. Look, it's starting to look to me, and I'm going to think the unthinkable, like there was somebody on that plane or something on that plane that needed to be handled. Otherwise, why not just tell the story straight? The helicopter ran into the plane. Why the cover-up effort? Why do we know nothing about the crew manifest or the passenger manifest on American Airlines 5342, okay? And why do we know more about the helicopter than the airplane? American could tell us. But again, why is it that they keep saying that the plane collided with a helicopter rather than what is obvious, that the helicopter collided with a plane, and air controllers were asking the people who are driving the helicopter, hey, did you see the CRJ? Well, we're about to, here we go. All right, here we go with the...
For more clues already, you know, so much of CNN's reporting has gleaned a lot of facts. Information from air traffic control was really vital because all flights in this area are 100% positively controlled by air traffic control, as are all commercial passenger service flights. It's the law. And so we will want to hear more. We've already learned that air traffic control advised the helicopter about the flight in the area, that they were supposed to pass behind the flight. They said they had the flight in sight. But when you see the video, you can see there are two flights, and Washington Reagan was very busy tonight. I flew in there tonight myself at around 7:30. There were earlier some delays because of traffic, and you can see there's two planes in the area as we look at this video right now. So there is an awful lot that has been learned already. So I think, as is typical for the NTSB, they will have a briefing of strictly the facts that they know. They will not speculate or guess about anything. But a lot of information has come out already, and it certainly helps people begin to grapple, you know, begin to understand and take on board what has happened. But I mean, this is a big job, and particularly where it involves a U.S. commercial airline, actually, too, the one that sold the tickets of merit.
Okay, folks, got to report this. This is a report on Twitter. Didn't they Trump administration fire 100 senior leaders in the FAA today and then put up a hiring freeze? Actions have consequences. There's a reason the federal government is in charge of the FAA and the TSA. It's to protect the people. Shame on the Trump administration. Wow. Okay. I'm not trying to blame the crash on the Trump administration. I'm only putting out there what's being reported that you don't hear on this media because they're too busy covering stuff up.
They'll have to, other than for national security considerations, they will have to take command of the NTSB.
Mary, always appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much for joining us. And obviously you can see on the right side of your screen, microphones set up at Reagan National Airport. That is where we are awaiting a press conference from officials set to begin any moment now. Laura Coates is live on the scene at Reagan National Airport. And Laura, as we're just watching this and seeing new videos and new angles of this come in, the emergency response very much still underway behind you. What have you noticed in the last few minutes?
You know, at one point in time, that helicopter with the strobe light that had come down and the Collier area had left momentarily. It is now resumed almost immediately, and it's back in the area. I'm here with Brian Todd, who has been here on the scene along with me. It's increasingly cold, still very dark. We know there are still boats on the scene, indicating that there is still divers on the actual water trying to do something.
That's right. And we're trying, we've been standing here watching this operation going on all night long, trying to pinpoint the location of where this plane might be. We do know that those lights straight ahead, and we can kind of split off and let our photojournalist, Nick Leinbach, zoom in to that area there. That's where we can see, from the naked eye, we can see that those are boats. That's also near the confluence of where the Potomac and Anacostia rivers meet, and also near Joint Base Anacostia Bowling, which is a joint Navy and Air Force base just to the south, where they're staging assets over to our right. As Laura pointed out, we did see two helicopters, in circular motions above the water with spotlights. They disappeared, and then at least one of them came back. One of them is above the water over there right now. I can't see whether he has a spotlight in the water. He may. But again, the big question, Laura, can we pinpoint the location of that plane? We see these boats over here, and then there's kind of a space between two sets of boats. Is the plane there, and is the helicopter there? The helicopter is near where the plane is. Both are in the water. As our colleague Gabe Cohen pointed out from his sources, the plane is in pieces in the water. So, there could be elements of the plane that are not centralized in one location. That's going to, again, complicate the rescue and recovery efforts tonight. It's just getting colder as we speak. You and I have been talking about the weather. The water, at least, is very calm. That's a good thing for the divers. You and I were talking about the danger to the divers.
Yeah.
They are really, risking their lives going down in that twisted wreckage. Their tanks could get caught in something. They have no visibility. It is pitch black down there. Of course, they've got lights with them, but it is so dangerous for them as well.
And fighting the same hypothermia conditions as those who would be without the type of equipment that they would have on.
Right.
They have been in the water for now hours, presumably, intermittently, I'm sure, but for hours now trying to identify. But you're right, trying to navigate around the space, trying to figure out whether they can rescue or get a sense of what has happened here. And again, time, we have another helicopter you can see in the distance there with still that spotlight trained. This is a clear night, but it is pitch black. The only lights that are visible are the different flashing lights of law enforcement and first responders.
Hold on a second. Our guy says, I really think what we are seeing is the Blackhawk flying into the path of the jet. So, yeah, I agree with you. And then Ricardo Rivas says possible terrorist. There's a lot more questions that are meeting the whiteboard of listed ones to ask, and they're really pointed ones.
One staging area. There's another one over to the north where you see a lot of blue and red flashing lights there. I don't know whether that's across the river in D.C. or maybe at Reagan. But then you've got the boats over here. We believe that's where the concentrated rescue effort is going on. And then over to the right, to the south, Joint Base Anacostia Bowling. It is a huge staging area with assets deployed all over this river at this point. And again, they're working against conditions, cold, poor visibility.
And adding to the tragedy, the proximity of where they are looking for this aircraft and the rescue mission, close to the runway at the airport, close to where the destination would have resulted in a safe landing. And we know the tragedy that has occurred. We've got Gabe Cohen, who is back in the airport with some new reporting. Gabe, what have you learned?
Well, Laura, I've been told by a law enforcement source who was at the scene that this search and rescue operation has become even more grave here over the past minutes and hours, that the images, they're starting to get images back from the rescuers who are on the water, the boats, the divers, and they describe them as stunning. Difficult to even make out what they are seeing. The plane is in pieces in the water, and officials right now are preparing for this to be potentially the deadliest disaster here in Washington in decades. We have confirmed there are fatalities in the Potomac, and at this point, a law enforcement source tells me no survivors have been pulled from the water. We're expecting a press conference here at Reagan Airport in the next couple minutes. DC's Mayor Muriel Bowser is going to be leading the press conference, and we expect to hear from other officials as well. So, Laura, we're likely to get an update. But again, that law enforcement source telling me that the actual operation happening right now on the Potomac has become much more grave in these brutal conditions as they're starting to get an up-close look at the wreckage, those pieces of the plane, what the helicopter that's been bobbing up and down in the water, what they actually look like. And it is a terrible scene that they're describing.
A stunning turn of events and a tragedy. Caitlin, we are here on the river behind us. What was a rescue operation now changing rapidly, hoping to get more information. We're told there have been no survivors that have been pulled from the wreckage as divers are continuing in their efforts to get information. Just being told by our own Gabe Cohen that some of what they're seeing and describing is undescribable. They're not sure what it is they're seeing. A plane in pieces just near the end of the Reagan National Airport runway. You can only imagine what these final moments of these flights were like as we're trying to get more information, waiting for this press conference. Family members, members of the military, desperate to understand how this could have happened and why and what now.
Yeah, it makes your stomach turn to hear Gabe's reporting there just about so far no survivors have been pulled from the water. It's been over 3 hours. We're getting close to 4 since this flight crashed. It's expected to land about 8:48 p.m. Eastern. And I should note, any moment now, we are expecting officials to come out and brief reporters there where Gabe was reporting from at Reagan National Airport. The microphones have been set up, and we are waiting to see what updates, if any, they have on this search and rescue operation that's been going on. We do know the Washington, D.C. Mayor, Muriel Bowser, is expected to be one of the officials there. We are waiting to see who else joins her. Pete Montine, as we're watching this, I mean, I think so many people are stunned watching and seeing this scene outside the nation's capital, but also that it has been 16 years since a commercial airliner has crashed in the United States.
It speaks to the gold standard of safety that is commercial flying in the U.S., and it is hard to tell folks. I get a lot of questions about, is flying safe? Typically, I answer yes. Now it gives me a bit of pause knowing that this has happened, and we have had a bit of an aligning of the holes in the Swiss cheese that so many aviation experts have warned about. A mid-air collision like this is incredibly rare. And really has not happened involving a commercial flight in decades. 1978 was about the same time, and perhaps a grim piece of irony involving a PSA flight. It's important to note, as we continue to hear about PSA, this airline that was operating this flight on behalf of American Airlines, that is a company that is owned wholly by American Airlines. This is the flight path that you can see here. The yellow line is of the helicopter. This is the flight tracking data. The orange line is of that American Airlines PSA flight coming into land on runway 33 at Reagan National Airport. This is a common and routine approach typically utilized by air traffic controllers to try and squeeze planes in a little bit faster. This is the image of the fireball that ensued of the helicopter coming right to left toward the bright light there. That is that PSA American Airlines flight, and then smash. That is the mid-air collision and the parts falling to the icy Potomac River below water temperature about 35 degrees tonight. I've pointed this out a couple times prior, and I have a few models here to demonstrate just how hard it can be for pilots of a commercial airliner, 2 pilots in that airplane, and the pilots of helicopters to see one another.
Where are the blind spots? If you're a pilot, Pete, so you understand this very well, obviously. Where are the blind spots if you're on either of these aircraft?
The blind spot in a commercial airliner is really anything that the pilots are not focused on. When you're descending, you can't see super well below and in front of you. So it is said that pilots doing a typical approach in a commercial airliner, their brains are lighting off with the same frequency as a doctor doing cardiovascular surgery, open heart surgery.
Because they're that focused.
It's an incredible focus. You're focused on the instruments and also focused on the runway. You are locked in. The blind spots in a helicopter pilots typically are looking at the ground, and the altitude here was only at about 300 feet. So you can see here, as the collision sort of is ensuing, helicopter pilots are looking up a lot because of where the rotors are. The pilots are probably locked in on the runway in front of them, and you can see how this sort of disaster is in the making. So it is really so important to underscore how infrequent mid-air collisions are, but how quickly the recipe, the bad recipe, can be concocted and disaster can take place. This is likely going to be one of the worst air tragedies we have seen in 20.
And the guy's trying to explain this on CNN, but he's not mentioning that the air controller said, hey, do you see the CRJ? All right? He's talking about their vision. But the controllers are saying, hey, look, do you see him? And if you don't see him, it's hey, we don't see him, change. But it was too late. They hit him.
The easier because of the lights. What is that like?
Flying at night is a totally different set of risks. It's a totally different bailiwick than flying in the daytime. So in a helicopter, a training flight might be taking place so those pilots can keep their acuity on night vision goggles to just sort of get practice, get their reps in. Helicopters fly through the airspace that is typically reserved for a large commercial airport, but is special at Reagan National Airport, and talk to air traffic controllers there in the tower and coordinate with them. The rub here is that military aircraft like the helicopter are often using a different set of frequencies, a UHF band, whereas civilian airplanes like the airliner they're on a VHF band.
And so what does that mean? Does that mean that they don't hear what they say back?
Yeah, so essentially you don't hear both parts of the conversation. And I can tell you as a civilian pilot, I'm flying all the time, you can hear controllers speak to the military, but sometimes you don't hear the voice on the other end respond back. So you only hear one side of the conversation. So that could be a factor here. There's so many things unfolding right now, but really, the investigators will first want to know what was on the voice recorder, what were the controllers telling the pilots of the helicopter and the pilots of the commercial flight. Was there any sort of warning in the tower? Were the controllers able to see this? It is a very helpless thing, as air traffic controllers in the tower will tell you when an incident happens. They are at their post and they are doing their job, and if they see an incident, sometimes there's nothing they can do to stop it or to change what the fate is unfolding in front of them or to respond.
Well, and you talked about how busy that runway is, and they have other flights that are coming in as this was going on, and all of those have been grounded. No one took off, no one landed after this. The president was briefed earlier today. He issued a statement, but he just also posted this on Truth Social, saying the airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. He said, it is a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they ever saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented. Not good. That is a statement from the U.S. president, the first statement we have seen directly from him on this after earlier the statement from the White House saying he had been briefed. And God rest their souls. Pete, what's your take on this?
Some of that is not necessarily wrong. It is true that the flight was on a routine approach, and that is a normal approach that is often used. It was a clear night. It is a moonless night, but there are clearly lights on both airplanes, both helicopter and airplane in this case, as we can see in the video. The insinuation here that this helicopter may have been, for some reason, intentionally aiming at this commercial flight, that is baseless. And that is something that investigators will, of course, look at. But remember, this is a common route. It's a confluence of a corridor, several corridors used for helicopters all the time as they whiz up and down the Potomac at a few hundred feet. Typically, they are clear of other airplanes. Why this helicopter was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or why this flight was in the wrong place at the wrong time, or why just the timing was off, will be up to investigators to figure out. And we are at such the early stages. It is so soon and way too early to speculate.
Pete Muntean, stand by. I want to get back to Laura Coates, who is live on the scene outside Reagan National Airport. Laura, what are you hearing there?
In just the last couple of minutes, we've seen an interesting turn of events in that the helicopter that has been circulating around this area primarily for the past several hours in the area where the boats were that presumably had the divers has now turned its attention to the shore area. And that light was able to allow us to see this is very shallow by the dock. You could actually see, Brian, the pebbles on the ground, the dirt under the actual sand underneath the water. They are training their attention closer over here. You're seeing the current may have something to do with this.
Possibly. I mean, what is very interesting the way you described it, he's coming back for another pass near us now.
It's been at least 10 to 12 in the last several minutes in this one area.
And he's shining the spotlight on the water near us, and he's coming back right now. I think, well, he's really slowing down. I don't know whether we can get a shot of him. He's hovering above the water right over there.
And where we are right now, by the way, there's all these docks and areas. It's a sailing area as well in the nation's capital, but he is slowing down. His attention. And you can see it.
Kind of along the shoreline where the screen I pointed out. Well, I just got a glimpse of the bottom of the river.
Yeah.
Because it's only about 4 feet where we are. It is incredibly shallow over here. Our colleague, Peter McConnell, sailed along this section of the river. Says it's very, very shallow over on the other side, presumably where the plane is down. So
we're also seeing cars. Look at there's cars coming towards this area. The flashing lights. Go ahead, Brian.
Clearly something has struck their interest here, and if something or someone is drifting from the wreckage site, it could be drifting this way, most likely drifting south to our right from here. And again, we just don't know the exact pinpointed location of where the plane is. We have seen boats over here, or as you and I have talked about, all night long, straight ahead over here. That chopper was very near them until just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
What is he looking for? It could be wreckage, it could be possibly bodies, but I tend not to think that they would be drifting this way. They would be drifting south if they were drifting at all.
I'll notice, of course, the water has changed. About 20 minutes ago, it was almost like glass on the actual surface of the water. And now, with, of course, the fast rise from the helicopter, you're seeing the water change, almost like a bit of a tide coming towards the shore as they're continuing to pass through. Could be, of course, the velocity and the speed and the wind coming from the actual helicopters. But this attention on this area strikes a chord.
I'm going to freeze this because I think this should be repeated. Jim Minardi says, POTUS Donald Trump released a statement by Truth Social reacting to the tragic mid-air collision between American Airlines Flight 5342 and Blackhawk over DCA tonight. The airplane was on a perfect and routine line of approach to the airport. The helicopter was going straight at the airplane for an extended period of time. It is clear, a clear night. It is a clear night. The lights on the plane were blazing. Why didn't the helicopter go up or down or turn? Why didn't the control tower tell the helicopter what to do instead of asking if they saw the plane? This is a bad situation that looks like it should have been prevented, not good. And the president is right to say that. It may not be something anyone wants to digest, but good for him for noting what we've all seen.
Of the area that we believe they have focused their attention on, they seem to be away from that zone, even going even further south now towards the Mount Vernon area. Of course, the first president of the United States home. We are near the nation's capital. This is at the end of the runway for the national airport, close to the Pentagon. A collision between a Blackhawk helicopter and a passenger aircraft. Knowing that there have been confirmed fatalities, we're waiting on a report, and this helicopter continues to do passovers.
Right. It's worth pointing out again just how many military installations are near here.
Yes.
How many of those military installations have helipads and small.
While they're talking, I'm going to read some more reports from Twitter because I'm waiting for the briefing. Tenacity for the Truth says, I really think what we are seeing is the Blackhawk flying in the path of the jet. Yeah, I got that part. Anyone want to speculate what's really going on? I mean, I really would love to hear your speculation. Because we have enough of people telling us, well, it's not that. Well, tell us, if it's not that, then tell us what it is, rather than getting mad. Which I can't stand when people do that. If you don't know what it is, just say, hey, look, you don't know what it is. All right. Here are new aerial images I'm going to show you right now. All right. There. This is from there. Okay. There's one aerial image. And this says, and here's another. It says, new aerial images show rescue boats surrounding wreckage from the Reagan Airport mid-air collision over the Potomac River. The crumpled fuselage, partially submerged, is believed to be from American Airlines Flight 5342 or the UH-60 Blackhawk, though officials are still working to confirm. Recovery operations are ongoing as investigators assess the extent of the destruction. More updates as they come in. Okay, there's another one. That looks like it's from the plane. That's huge. Just see that. That's okay. That's the boat. This is huge. All right, that's huge over there. So more updates as they come in, and I'm waiting for the report, and I want to see what the official reports come out to be. They say it was on a training flight. Reminds me of a scene from Iron Man, training exercise. Remember that? It was on a training exercise. That's the kind of story they tell when they don't want to let you know what really happened. Like, hey, we were training. Hey, Iron Man and Tony Stark came by with his suit, and he managed to damage one of our planes. Okay. Instead of saying that, they say it was a training exercise. This sounds something like that. It really does, because someone said the helicopter passengers were alive. Now you're saying there are no fatalities. There are fatalities. There are no survivors. All right. Which is it? All right. Are you all saying this so that we don't hear any eyewitness testimony from anyone who was actually involved in the thing, and they go scurrying off into the hideaway land? Something is going on here, folks. Something's going on here. You can smell a rat. I can smell a rat. We both know something is going on here, all right? I think there was someone on that plane they wanted to take out. That's what it looks like to me. Something they're not telling us. It is way too fishy. Okay? I mean, it's way too fishy. And this is one of those situations where somebody's telling you how to look at something, and your own eyes are saying, well, look, that's not it. That's not it. Even the President of the United States is saying that. Okay? And if the President of the United States is saying that, that should give you an alarm. You have these folks saying one thing, and the President is saying what everybody else is saying. Okay? Folks, that's hinky. You know it's hinky, and I know it's hinky. And I'm on Donald's side this time. You know, he may get some things wrong, but he got this one right. I'm telling you. The president got this right. Straight up. Let's see what's going on here.
You know, most recently with the Alaska Airlines door plug blowout on a 737 MAX 9, which was barely a year ago, just over a year ago, they pile into the FAA administrator's airplane, it's called November 1, and then fly out to the scene. In this case, they don't have to do that. They have to motor out to the scene and see what is there. And we know from a source on the scene that divers from pretty much every corner of the DMV, the DC, Maryland, and Virginia region, are on the scene, but it is an incredibly treacherous scene, and it is something that diving at night is not easy. It's a scary operation.
And that Park Police helicopter that we just saw flying so low over Laura and Brian, helicopters are circling over them all night, frankly, but we had not seen one that low. I mean, at that point, based on where they are on the river, is it looking for debris as well to help with this investigation? Is there piecing this together?
They want to know where the parts of the airplane and helicopter are, and that has been primarily the mystery, at least to us here, because it is not readily apparent in the live images that we have been seeing all night. It is mostly boats congregated in one spot, congregated in another spot, helicopters flying over. Another sad twist of the story here is that Park Police helicopters heroically rescued people from the Air Florida Flight 90 crash back in the 80s, the last time that there was a really significant incident off the shores of Reagan National Airport.
One thing that their officials are undoubtedly going to be asked about is what was communicated to the pilots of this plane and to the pilots and the 3 members of the U.S. Army who were on that Blackhawk helicopter. We do have some of the air traffic control sounds, Pete, that you've been going through, where they're asking, do you have this in sight? They have the call signals. I want us to listen to it, and then I want you to analyze it for us.
I don't know if you caught earlier what happened, but there was a collision on the approach in the 3-3.
So you hear them saying they're passed behind the American Airlines flight.
Yeah, and that is something so key. It is when avoiding a collision in the air, the typical way of avoiding a collision is just by eyeball, see and avoid. And so air traffic controllers in a radar facility or in a tower will ask an airplane clearly converging with another one on their radar scope, do you have that in sight? And the pilots of one or the other airplane will say, I'm searching, or I have the airplane or helicopter in sight. So that is very critical. And if this air traffic control audio is valid and true and shows the full picture, and it's something that investigators will be able to pull from the tapes in the air traffic control tower, it will really sort of paint the picture of the warnings that took place before in the moments of this collision.
Because that's really going to be the question. I mean, even the President of the United States is raising that question amid some speculation online about what it is that was signaled to this. And this is the image, Pete. We were just looking at this and getting this pulled up. Right here, you can see the plane in the water of the Potomac. One, it is just striking to even see that. That is the wing of the plane on the left. The fuselage, I believe, as you noted earlier, on the right side of this. Tell us what we're looking at here.
I see the fuselage on the right side. Obviously, this is sort of obscured a little bit, and there's a police boat in the background there. It looks from the Metropolitan Police Department. That is very clearly a wing of the CRJ700, this flight from Wichita to DCA, carrying 64 people on board in the left half of the screen. That looks to me to be the top of the wing, submerged in the water. When a mid-air collision happens, usually it looks kind of like a car wreck, and there's mangled metal and things come down in multiple parts, and investigators will be looking at which part hit the ground first and where. They'll be able to piece that together, even use the radar data that the air traffic controllers were using to warn of an impending collision to find out where the pieces came down. They're actually able to see that track on their scope if there is a bit of a radar return from a piece of metal, but this is striking.
To see that plane in the Potomac, and let's listen, here's the DC mayor right now.
All right, here we are. All right. Come on, Ms. Mayor. Let's get it going.
I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. I'm at Reagan National Airport. I am joined by United States Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, United States Senator Jim Moran, Senator Roger Marshall, Jack Potter, the CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. We are here to brief you on the very tragic events of this evening, where we know a passenger plane coming to the airport here collided with a military helicopter. Our fire department, DC Fire and EMS, supported by fire departments and police departments from across the Washington metropolitan region, are executing a rescue operation in the Potomac River. They are working diligently in very dark and cold conditions, cold water, to execute this rescue operation. We have had the opportunity to be briefed by American Airlines officials. I'm told that American Airlines leadership is on the way to Washington as well. And officials are in the airport talking to families now. We do have a 1-800 number where families should contact us. Should contact American Airlines for more information, and we will be providing that information shortly. I am going to turn to a number of officials to provide as much information as we can this evening, and we expect to have more frequent briefings at daylight. So with that, I'm going to turn to Secretary Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I think for all of us, we want to extend our thoughts and prayers to those individuals who were impacted by the events tonight, their families. We know this is a very difficult time for all of them. I want to join the mayor and everyone here to extending our thank you to the first responders who, again, in very difficult situations and environments, are out there searching and attempting to rescue. Tonight, I spoke with President Trump and his team in the Situation Room. I had a conversation with Secretary Pete Hegseth as well, and then with the Kansas delegation and the mayor and others in leadership, as well as Governor Youngkin from Virginia and Governor Kelly from Kansas. From the Department of Transportation and FAA's perspective, we are going to offer full support to those on the ground, to the mayor, but also to the NTSB, who is going to be conducting the investigation in this matter. We are going to provide all the support that's necessary. Mayor.
So with that, I want to ask Chief John Jonley from DC Fire and EMS to provide an update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Donnelly, Chief of DC Fire and EMS. This evening at 8:48, an alert was sounded, initiating a large regional response to a report of an aircraft crash on approach to the airport. This response includes first the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority's Fire Department, the District of Columbia Fire Department, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the U.S. Park Police to respond into the area and to sort that out. At 8:58, the first units arrived on the scene and found an aircraft in the water and began rescue operations. This incident has grown. There's currently about 300 responders working. We have boats from all throughout the region, police and fire boats. We have a mutual aid agreement in Washington, D.C., the National Capital Region Mutual Aid Agreement administered by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and we're all operating under that. We're operating under a unified command. Everybody's together. So we also have requested state police helicopters from Maryland, and the Coast Guard helicopter is working. So this is a state and federal response as well. U.S. Coast Guard's got some boats in the water as well. So it's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough for the responders. It's cold. They're dealing with relatively windy conditions. Wind is hard out on the river. So they're out there working. We're doing everything we can to keep them safe. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to the mayor.
In Chief Bonnet from MWA.
I'm Rick Bonnet, Fire Chief of MR Fire and Rescue. Our unit, as Chief Daly already alluded to, at 2048, we received an alert from the FAA tower of an aircraft incident involving a commercial aircraft and a helicopter. Our units immediately responded and deployed 3 boats and immediately called for mutual aid resources. Again, as Chief Donnelly said, this is an active operation that's going to last many hours as we continue to work through recovery efforts and rescue operations. This will be ongoing for quite a while. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families and our communities, and we appreciate all DC's support to our agency and our federal partners.
So with that, I wanted to turn to the senators who are from Kansas who wanted to say a few words. First, Senator Moran, and then Senator Marshall.
Mayor, thank you, and Mr. Secretary, thank you, and to our first responders, thank you very much for all that's taking place here. I'm Jerry Moran. I'm a United States Senator from Kansas, and I chair the subcommittee in Commerce Committee on Aviation. So we have really a serious and sad circumstance that we want to be here to be helpful, and we're praying that our responders are safe and the folks who are on that flight are recovered. The circumstance I would describe is that I know that flight. I've flown it many times myself. I lobbied American Airlines to begin having a direct nonstop flight service to DCA. That flight has been in existence about a year. And it is certainly true that in Kansas and in Wichita in particular, we're going to know people who are on this flight, know their family members, know somebody. So this is a very personal circumstance as well as an official response. And again, we will do everything we can to make certain that we're supportive of the rescue efforts, and we'll do everything we can to make certain that our subcommittee and Congress is engaged in what needs to take place following the outcome of this evening and this month's kind of investigation. I've talked to NTSB, I've talked to the White House, I've talked to the Department of Defense, and I've talked to the CEO of American Airlines, and there is all of us pulling together for the best outcome possible. I'm honored to be here with my colleague, Senator Marshall, as we try to make certain that we care for those certainly back in Kansas that were on that flight. But it's a reminder that there are people here in Washington, D.C., in this region, in Virginia and Maryland, and many places else that fly to and from Kansas. And so we're rooting and supporting all those, regardless of where you're from. And Mayor, I appreciate the gathering here for us to try to provide information to those in Kansas and across your city. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator Moran and Mayor, Secretary. You know, when one person dies, it's a tragedy, but when many, many, many people die, it's an unbearable sorrow. It's a heartbreak beyond measure. And I know Senator Moran and I are here just to say we care. We wish that there was more we could do, but unfortunately there doesn't seem much at this time. I want the folks back home to just know that we care, that we love them, and that this is a time when we'll have to join arms together and help each other out. We've been through things like this before, through tornadoes and floods and things, but it's really hard when you lose, you know, probably over 60 Kansans simultaneously. And I don't want to forget the pilots and the flight attendants, you know, are doing, you know, do their job, and the military personnel we lost. You know, all those lives are so valuable, and it is such a tragedy that we lost them. You know, I think often in times like this, I try to find a scripture that, you know, is apropos, and this is from the book of Psalms. It says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Certainly we're crushed in spirit tonight. We mourn with the families who lost loved ones, and we truly are joining them in prayer and wrapping our arms around them in love and compassion. Thanks for everybody for coming out tonight, and thank you for your thoughts and your prayers.
So certainly I speak for the people of Washington, 700,000 of us who are extremely sorry for the families who are experiencing loss tonight. And so we want you to know that we will continue to work with American Airlines to share information as frequently as possible and make sure that we're getting accurate information out to the public. But my sorrow for all of the people and crew on the plane and our military personnel on the helicopter is very deep. I do want to turn to Jack Potter, who is the CEO of our Airports Authority, responsible for Reagan National Airport and Dulles International Airport, to talk to you about how the airport responded and what's going to happen next.
Good evening. As was said, I'm Jack Potter, President and CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. Thank you all for being here tonight and under these very, very grim circumstances. First of all, I want to let you know that we're providing support to all the families who are involved. American Airlines has established a phone number for them to reach out. It's been published, but let me repeat it. It's 1-800-679-8215. So families of folks that were on the plane are asked to contact them. We did have folks who were at the airport to pick up loved ones. And so American has set up a center in their in their lounge at the north end of the airport. And we've directed the families there, and there are folks there counselors there to work with the families. We did have aircraft that were in the air. They were diverted to Dulles Airport, some 19 aircraft. We had personnel, United and others had personnel. We want to thank WMATA for extending their hours on the Metro to make sure that those folks were accommodated. Right now, as was said earlier by the chief, we're in a rescue mode. We will continue in that rescue mode. I want to thank all of the mutual aid responders, all the counties, the district, folks from Maryland and Virginia. Everybody's on site doing the best they can, and numerous boats out in the water right now. NTSB is on site. I want to thank all of the folks behind me, the secretary, the mayor, the 2 senators for all of their support, and we're going to continue to work through the night. I do want to make an announcement. People are, concerned about what's going to happen in the morning. Reagan National Airport will be closed until 11 o'clock. That's when the first flights will take off. But we're going to continue to do our best and work through this situation over the course of the night. And we hope to have more news as it develops. But for right now, it's a very difficult situation out there with the cold. It's very dark, but there are numerous boats out there. There are dive teams out there. So, again, we'll continue to work this situation, and I'll turn it back to the mayor. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that update. And you've heard that in the National Capital Region, the district, of course, is Washington, D.C. is at the center, but we are a close region. We have heard from the governors of Maryland and Virginia, the mayor of the city of Baltimore, all who have sent us personnel to help in the rescue operations. Last thing I'll note is just to our local viewership, and just please let our first responders do their work. Try to let our vehicles get to scenes and through scenes. We don't want anybody else to get hurt because of moving vehicles, okay? So we will be able to take a few questions. There's not a lot that we can say. We won't be able to say anything about an investigation. As you know, once Fire and EMS completes the rescue operation, then the investigation goes over to the National Transportation Safety Board. And I'm sure the Safety Board, NTSB, will provide information about when they will be briefing about an investigation. So we'll take a few. Yes?
Can you
how number one aircraft are in the water, and perhaps Chief Donnelly can explain what's involved in conducting an operation like this in these conditions.
Yes, both aircraft are in the water. The focus now is rescuing people, and that's what all of our personnel are focused on. And Chief, I think he's given a pretty good description, but if there's anything else you want to add, Chief.
I would just say that the boats are out doing searches. We have divers on both aircraft, and they're searching those the airport, the aircraft at this point.
Right. Yes.
Have any survivors been found, and how many bodies have been recovered?
All we can confirm tonight is the number of people on each aircraft, 64 people on the American Airlines plane and 3 people on the military helicopter. When we can't provide any more information about recovery efforts.
People have talked about lost loved ones, so how do you know that there are people who lost loved ones?
I didn't say I didn't know people had lost loved ones. I said we can't talk about any of the recovery efforts in specific tonight. Yes. So I'll call on who's next. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Will this affect operations at Dulles and BWI? Will the Potomac River traffic be closed to the boats?
Yes. And so Jack has talked about, Jack, can you talk about Dulles? I'm not sure we can talk about BWI, but we can talk about Dulles.
There is no impact at BWI or at Dulles. As I said earlier, our airport here, Ronald Reagan National Airport, will be closed until 11 o'clock. Obviously, that will be fluid. We'll learn more, but we wanted to advise passengers who might be coming to the airport in the morning that we will be closed until at least 11 o'clock.
Yeah, 1 second. You're next.
Just other than the current situation, like we know the water is extremely cold and it's very dark outside. Although the senator is saying that there are numerous boats in the water, but what's the biggest challenges for the rescue team? What best scenario we can expect in the coming few hours?
So the challenges are access. The water that we're operating in is about 8 feet deep. There is wind, there is pieces of ice out there, so it's just dangerous and hard to work in. And because there's not a lot of lights, you're out there searching every square inch of space to see if you can find anybody. And divers are doing the same thing in the water. The water is dark, it is murky, and that is a very tough condition for them to dive in. The question about the river, we'll make that decision later. The Coast Guard's on scene, and I would expect that it's not a high use time in the river, and we should not expect to have commercial, recreational traffic on the river tomorrow.
Okay, 3 questions. 1, 2, 3.
Secretary Levy, have you been in touch with the air traffic controllers who were in the tower at the time of the crash?
I have not.
You have not. And since you mentioned this is your first several hours in this position, what are your thoughts? What are you feeling right now?
My focus is on those who are impacted on this flight. And again, I've been secretary for a little over a day, and the tragedy that we're going to deal with this recovery, I think is touching everyone's hearts, whether it's here in the greater DC area or in Kansas. And again, I think everyone here is thinking and praying for those who potentially have lost a loved one. And thank you.
Thank you. Your question?
Can you give us any sense about how an accident that is so close to the airport, right in the heart of DC, reports that the DCA tower contacted the helicopter moments before the crash to ask if they had sight of the aircraft, and apparently the helicopter reported that it did have sight of an aircraft. Is it possible that it had the wrong aircraft in sight? Do you have any sense of what went wrong in those times?
I know that the National Transportation Safety Board in its investigation will be able to search on all of those questions. We wouldn't be able to talk about that tonight. Yes?
2 words for Secretary Duffy. The first thing, you were talking about the situation with the president and both being there. Can you tell us more about the president's initial reaction just to the message? You have that military helicopter.
So I was not in the Situation Room. I did have a conversation with the Situation Room where the president was located, as well as with Secretary Hegseth. we're exchanging information. I would just note that not just the local team, but the federal team has performed very well in this crisis. I know the president is incredibly concerned about what's happened here today. I'm sure we'll continue to hear more from him, and I'll continue to consult with him and Secretary Hegseth. Absolutely. The president has committed to this team and to the NTSB through the DOT that we will provide all resources necessary as we go through this recovery, but also the support from FAA and DOT as the NTSB investigates.
Secretary, do you know the condition of the aircraft? Are they full? Are they split? Pieces?
Again, I don't think we can comment on that. Our focus is on getting the passengers and crew out of the water.
And just one more clarification, because earlier we got guidance that DCA was going to be shut down at least until Friday at 5 a.m. I just heard 11 a.m. 11 a.m. tomorrow. Okay.
Yes. Okay. We can take a few more questions. A question here, and here. Yeah.
Can you just confirm, has anybody been transported to the
I can't say anything about the rescue operation right now. Who was next? Yes.
Yeah, Chief Donnelly, can you speak a little bit more about the unified command who leads this phase of the rescue and recovery? At what point do you then change phases? And can you describe to us the scene as best you can when first responders first arrive?
So I happened to be listening to the radio this evening when the call came out. I listened to the responders come in, and the initial response, they were very professional trying to locate this. This is, if you can imagine, the river is a large black spot at night with no lights on it except for a few buoy lights. So they were out there looking. The boats pretty quickly were able to locate one of the aircraft and get there. So that's what's going on right now. Everybody's working on that. We will reevaluate where we are with the rescue operation in the morning when we get a better sense of it, but we are still out there working, and we're going to continue that throughout the night.
Is there a sense that there are survivors?
We don't know yet, but we're working.
Is any part of the search happening over land?
No, we're all in the water.
Yes. Oh, you got a question. Somebody didn't get a question. Hold on. Yes.
I just wanted to ask, do you have an estimate yet on how long the recovery efforts will take?
Chief.
So experiences like this we expect to continue our operations in the fire department for multiple days. And then I would expect the investigation goes longer than that.
Okay, you didn't get a question, and you are next, I think.
Thank you very much. My question is, do we have any plan to prevent future crash or future accidents? Do we have any to reform the authority, the airport control, to count those people who are flying the next 2 days? And also, how long the rescue is going to last? Are we going to stop rescue after tomorrow 11 a.m.? Like divers team, because they are still in the golden hours now.
No. I mean, I think you just heard the chief said we're going to be out there as long as it takes. And we're obviously trying to get to people as soon as possible, but we are going to recover our fellow citizens. Yes.
This is for the chief and Secretary Duffy. How do you balance the search and rescue operation with preserving the scene for the investigation that's now underway?
So from the fire department's point of view, we are always going to put people first. But I don't think I think our operations, because we have a unified command, we are all working together, and the NTSB is in contact with us, and we will work together to make sure that if there's crucial evidence that it's preserved. And that's something we do every day with our police department on crime scenes and things. So life comes first, and everything else is after that.
Okay, last question. Yeah.
I know it's early, but are there any actions the FAA can take to prevent helicopters and commercial airplanes getting close to one another?
So obviously there'll be a review of what happened here tonight. And after the FAA studies what happened, we will take appropriate action if necessary to modify flight paths and permissions.
You have one? I spoke with the President's National Security Advisor, and I have not talked to the President yet, and I do not know what the mission was. So let me close by saying again, thank you to the members of the press to help us get information out to the families. The American Airlines number is 800-679-8215. 800-679-8215. And I expect the airport will likely provide additional information in the morning. Thank you.
You have been listening to officials here in Washington, D.C., giving the first update to reporters and the public.
That's the first update, and it's going to be a while before we get the next one. And it's sad. It's beyond sad. Let me see if the president has sent any other communications since the last reported one before I let's see here, close this. Let's see, that's not the one I'm looking for. Excuse me for a second here. Here's the other one. Okay, I don't have any other new, I don't have any new communications from the president or anyone else. Just his original statement that came through at 10:52 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. This is truly a sad day, and just keep everybody in your prayers and thoughts. I am still maintaining that flying is the safest mode of travel there is, and I believe something unusual happened here. That helicopter's flight path and its mission must be explained. You heard the mayor say that she doesn't know what the mission was. No one knows why these guys are out there. They're just out there on what was called a training mission. That spells cover up to me. I'm just, in my opinion, that's what that sounds like. Something else happened, okay? And the American people deserve to know what that something else was. And I like the president agreeing with people like me who are asking that question. So I believe we'll get to the bottom of the problem sooner rather than later. All right, folks, we've been on for 2 hours, 50 minutes, and 25 minutes. We've been on for two. I'm sorry.
The flights are grounded at Reagan.
Oh, the flights are grounded at Reagan, by the way. We've been on for 2 hours, 50 minutes, and 38 seconds and counting. It is now 1:25 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. I want to thank everybody who has chosen Zenny62 YouTube to come and follow this tragedy with us and share information like David did. I guess he's off to bed, and others. And I want to thank you very, very much. If you haven't done so, please, because you're going to want updates about this in the near future, subscribe to Zenny62 on YouTube, this channel, and bookmark ZennyReport.com. All right, thank you very much.
That's a real tragedy.